Just a second. Okay. Well, hello to the few people that are here. I was having some major technical difficulties because that seems to be my curse. But tonight I'm going to do a bit of reading. Is it backwards? No. Okay, you can read it. From Murmurs in the Dark by a friend of mine. His name is MJ Ors. We can wait till a few people come in first, but in the meantime, I'm going to pick where I'm going to start. But I'd also like to shout out the few people that are in here. I can see that a couple of my friends are in here. My friend Stumpkin Jack, he does a lot of streaming. Rev DK, who did this amazing piece on my chest. I don't know, can you see it? It's awesome. I love it. He's awesome. And Crystalline Art, she does a lot of painting and gaming as well. She's a very nice lady. They're all amazing. I don't know who else is here. Oh. Aw. Fire and Mischief. Hey, how's the stream going? Considering I've been having difficulties with everything, it's going great. It only just started, so you haven't missed anything. I haven't even started reading. You're good. Okay, where do I want to start? They he kind of separated stuff up. I think this is like a collection of sorts. So I'm gonna try and read a full section for you guys instead of just picking random places like I have been for everybody else. Oh, yes I can. Let me see. Should be all the way up. Is that any better? Let me get this mic closer to me. It's going to be slightly on cam. Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, back to what I was looking at. I haven't really picked the section where I wanted to start. I'm just kind of winging it as I go. So, where'd that table of contents go? I don't know if anybody else has this book, but feel free to read along if you do. I know it's an independent author, so not many people have it. So, I guess I can just kind of start at the beginning. I think the first story is called Liars. Is enough people in here? Are you guys ready? Are you ready for me to start reading? Watching the chat here. You guys good? I'm just going to start anyway. There isn't much left of the woods behind my grandmother's house anymore. Anything that remained after they found the bodies has since been torn down, and they have begun building some industrial park. I often wonder what kind of business would feel okay buying or leasing that land, but I guess that really isn't any concern of mine. The house that my grandmother owned still stands, though is mostly, definitely vacant. Most definitely vacant. That isn't going to change for a good while. The news of the body parts being found spewed across the woods wasn't exactly private. Every social media outlet had its own story. Meaty. But I can tell you the real one because I was the only one that was there. My grandmother always told me stories of the liars. At first, I believed them to be silly tales that the old people would tell their kids to keep them from doing bad things. Kind of the same incentive that Santa Claus had when I was younger. She would tell me these horror stories about bad little boys and girls who decided to wander off at night and they never came home. I would ask her why they were called the liars, and she would shrug her shoulders and say, "Oh, thank you, Fire and Mischief. That was very nice of you. I only tell you what I know, little one. I only tell you what I know. My mother and father both died when I was 4. Oh, how sad. There was a car accident. I'm noticing the number 4 pops up a lot when I read stuff. It's my favorite number. I know I say this pretty forward and bluntly, but to be honest, it isn't like I had much to remember about them. I mean, think about what things you remember from when you were 4 years old. I remember a lot from when I was 4 years old. I remember my entire 4th birthday. It was Batman and Catwoman themed. I remember every last second of it. It was great. Loved it. Cake, fantastic. To me, the only parent I ever had was my grandmother. And she was good enough for me. So, for most of my life, I lived in that old house, walking to and from school, down the long dirt road, out in the middle of nowhere. A lot of these stories in this book are out in the middle of nowhere, from the little bit that I've read. No friends in walking distance, my grandmother, whose car rarely worked, with only one general store close by enough to keep the house stocked with the things that we needed to get by. My life was luxurious, but my life wasn't luxurious. But I was never one to complain. Well, that's good at least. My grandmother noticed that I spent so much time playing by myself, and I guess she thought it might be good for me to socialize more. By the time I was 16, she had bought me my first car. Oh, that was nice of her. So I could get out and see people besides my old hag of a grandma, maybe even a boy. My grandmother was not the subtle type, but it made me laugh to hear her even suggest the idea of a boy, seeing as how she was never a fan of the male species, calling them mindless pigs or dribbling hound dogs most of the time. But with the car also came the offer to have friends stay with me at the house. She even said that she would clean up the house if I let her know ahead of time when I would be having company. Sorry, the lighting's a little weird in here, so I have to turn the book. Let's see. I was so incredibly grateful, and I remember that hug that I gave her as being the tightest I think I've ever squeezed her. Oh, don't kill your grandma. That's not very loving. It was less than a week before I had invited to bring a friend to the house. The girl's name was Samantha. She wasn't someone I was incredibly close to, but then again, there really wasn't anybody at school that I was very friendly with. I can relate. If anybody knew me during school, which a few of you have, yeah, a few of you in here, Stumpkin, they know just how friendly I was. I've gotten better. And I lost my place. There were only about 150 kids in my high school, so if you didn't live near the school, then you were one of the last kids on the bus rides home, meaning the only person you talked to on the ride was the driver. It wasn't a very social kind of life. But now that I had a car, old and beat as it may be, I finally had someone coming to the house. Probably to mooch rides. But that's okay. The evening went by without incident. My grandmother was sweet and kind, just like I had expected her to be, and she even offered for Samantha to stay the night if it was okay with her mother, which Samantha laughed at before saying that it would be great to stay. I pulled out a cot in my room for her to sleep on and got sheets ready for the night. I had never actually had a slumber party. If that is what a 16-year-old would still call them. A sleepover? I don't know. Regardless, all of it was new to me. Yes, it would still be a sleepover. It's a sleepover even if you're 30. It's fine. As the night dwindled down, I had just laid my head down for the night, after making sure Samantha was comfortable, when I felt a hand shake my hip. Straight for the hip. You're not really going to sleep, are you? Samantha asked me, removing her hand and taking a step back with a smile on her face. The night is just getting started. Confused, I sat up, asking her what she was talking about. She shook her head and chuckled. The woods, they're creepy and perfect. So I texted a few of the other girls from school, and we were thinking how much fun it would be to go on a little adventure. I immediately shook my head. No way, we can't go back there. Well, why not? She asked. Don't be such a chicken shit. My grandmother said, of course she's going to tell you not to go back there, Samantha said abruptly with a harsh tone in her voice. She doesn't want to have to be worried about you, but if you go now while she's asleep, she won't have a chance to worry. We will be back in bed before she wakes up, and she will never have to know. Yeah, okay. Sure, that's how that always works out. The idea of actually having a few more friends around made me feel a bit more reluctant. Oh, okay, you don't want more friends. Yeah, right? Crystalline Art knows. Famous last words. You're sure we can be back before the morning, right? I asked. Oh no. Where are your friends, the others? They just pulled up, actually, Samantha said, looking down at her phone, which illuminated her face in the dark room. Put your shoes on. Let's get going. Again, you're not very close to this person, but you're going to go in the woods with not just them, but a group of people you don't know. Okay. Taking a deep breath, I slid on my sneakers and slowly crept down the stairs behind Samantha. The wooden floorboards echoed and howled beneath my feet, much louder than I could have ever remembered them doing in the past. Your kind of party? Oh, Crystalline, I did worse in high school. What'd you do? What did you do? Actually, I probably did worse in high school, too. I snuck out all the time. My parents just didn't really care at that point. I was the last kid. Alright, where was I? I'm waiting for that answer to see what you did. I'm curious. Unless you want to keep that private, we can talk about that later. Alright, this should have been my first warning that this was a bad idea. That was your first warning? That's not your first warning. But being the naive teenager that I was, I kept on going after Samantha until I found myself at the edge of the woods with my new friend and 3 other people I can only vaguely remember from class. All 3 girls I had never actually spoken to before. Okay. Aw. Crystalline snuggling in. Aw, you're so sweet. So, why does your grandma tell you to never come here? There should be a question mark there. But there isn't. It really isn't that scary. The girl that was talking shined her flashlight through the trees and up into the canopy of the branches above us. Like, they're just woods. Oh, Sunny Seeds is following. Thank you. Welcome. Yeah, they're more gross than they are scary. What's gross about the woods? Mr. Plaguesworth is following? Oh, nice, thank you. Alright. Oh, here we go. Said another one of the girls looking at the mud sticking from the bottom of her shoe. Okay, alright, mud's a little gross, I guess. I think it's fun. We walked for about 10 minutes into the darkness before Samantha put her hand out in front of me, pushing me back a step and forcing me to involuntarily hold my breath. What the fuck was that? Samantha asked, directing her stream of light frantically in front of her. You guys heard that too, right? Yeah, and if you didn't hear anything, that person's messing with you. Stop being a smartass, Sam, one of the girls replied. Come on, I don't want to be here too much longer. I'm tired. This place sucks. So much for your new little friend showing us something interesting. Well, that's not nice. Yeah, the other girl chimed in. She wasn't worth the trouble coming out here. We should go. This was a stupid way to spend a Friday night. Oh, and yes, thank you again, Rev, for modding. You're amazing. I love my friends. You guys, I love all of you. I didn't have the words to respond to them. I looked at Samantha, wondering what all she had said to our friends. No, her friend. Before they all came over. I'm sure it wasn't anything good. I turned and started walking back towards the house. "Aw," hollered one of the girls. "Look, you made the freak cry." Oh. I've never been bullied for being different, but I think it's because I was very standoffish. I was very mean, and not proud of it, but I kind of wanted people to be more intimidated by me so that they wouldn't make fun of me when I was younger. But over the years, I've met some real good friends, real good people, and have been able to kind of let some of the guard down. A little bit. There's always a little bit of a guard. But some of those people are here. So thank you. The laughter chimed through the forest around me. I picked up my pace. I heard a loud thud behind me. No, that's what that says, okay? Almost like something coming out from the trees. Before I could do a 180 in the mud of the forest floor, I heard a wet crunching noise, followed by the choked screaming of teenage girls. Oh, you guys are so sweet. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't work. I wanted to turn and see what was happened. That's what that said. I think it's supposed to say what was happening. But I couldn't spin. I was frozen in fear. I listened to a slew of damp and gushing chomps as I heard what I could only assume were the bodies of these girls falling to the dirt and leaves. In seconds, it was silent. I closed my eyes and accepted that I was next. I could feel every muscle in my body tense up, waiting for the gruesome end. Oh, Crystalline. Oh, hearts to you too. A hand met my shoulder, one that was soft and familiar. "Grandma?" I said as my grandmother walked around me, wiping the crimson from her chin, realigning her jaw that had been unhinged, most likely to take bigger bites. Oh, Grandma. Grandma's a badass. Oh, I like Grandma. She's my favorite. "Oh, little one, I told you not to come into the woods. Now you have to become a liar, just like me." Oh, you're hosting a stream? Oh, okay. Awesome. Well, go check out Mr. Plaguesworth, too. "A liar?" I asked. "What do you mean?" "Well, how are you going to explain your missing friends, dear? Probably the same way I explained the lumber workers or the hikers who all disappear from these woods. You become a liar. We all need to eat. Your parents did, just like I did, just like you will soon." "What?" I said, tears filling my eyes. "What are you talking about?" "Our family is a little different. We have held on to this property for years and years, long before I lived here. It has always been a safe place for people like us, and it will be yours someday to look over and use as you please." "Eat? Become a liar? Grandma, what are you saying? I don't think I understand." I could feel the vomit begin to climb up my chest, from my stomach, as the smell of flesh came off my grandmother's breath. Maybe take a few steps back. Grandma needs a breath mint. "When asked about what happened here, you are going to lie. To everyone. Maybe not at first, but then who will believe you? You'll become a liar, just like the rest of us did. Now, if you think you are ready, if you're feeling hungry, come eat with me. If not, then head home. You'll be hungry someday soon enough. Mentos fresh and full of life. Yeah, you know it. Go on, little one, she said. I'll be home soon. Oh, I think I skipped a paragraph. My grandmother made a shooing motion with her hand as I turned to see the carnage that she had created just moments before. The bodies of the girls were scattered across the ground, drenching every inch of the foliage. Oh, Bella's now following. Oh, hello, Belle. Thank you. My feet felt as if they were made of lead as my grandmother continued to shoo me. Go on, little one. I'll be home soon. Yeah, I did skip a paragraph, sorry. All of that was just a few years ago. Since then, my grandmother had gotten sick, and in her old age succumbed to her illness. Unknown illness, but who knows? I guess if you're only humanoid, you can get different illnesses. And it wasn't even days after that I understood what she meant by hungry. But I didn't want to continue on here. Just one time to get it out of the way, and I'll leave all of the evidence behind. Which is exactly what I did. They found the bodies in a matter of days. Maybe now, if they ask me, they won't think I'm such a liar. Oh, hello, Prometheus. Oh, welcome. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Prometheus is a new friend that I made. It was official friendship yesterday, and he streams games as well. He's very, very sweet, so check him out if you get a chance. Okay, so that's the end of that story. Next is medicine. So I'm assuming that some of these kind of go together, but I'm not sure. Haven't actually read the whole book through, so you're kind of discovering along with me. I shook my head slowly as I looked down at the patient lying under the white sheets. Oh, it flashed. Is everything okay? We're good? We're good? Okay. Oh, hold on. I think we are attempting a reconnect. No, it's not just you, Fiend 13. It's trying to reconnect right now. Okay. Let me see what we can do. Let everyone know. Okay, are we back up? I'm gonna wait and see if somebody responds before I start reading again. I'll restart that page. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we're back. We're back. Sorry about that. I'm kind of in the middle of nowhere, so my internet's not the best, so that's probably going to happen a few times. So bear with me. Sorry about that. Yes. Yes, all of those drops. But thank you for sticking around. Okay, we're going to restart medicine. I only read like 2 sentences, so. Oh, thank you. Don't worry, love. We will be here. Oh, thank you. You guys are so sweet. I can't take it. I shook my head slowly as I looked down at the patient lying under his white sheets. I could see the sweat coming off his brow, and I couldn't help but feel a little sorry for the man. I am surrounded by these people all day, every day. So you would think that after 4 years, look, that number 4 again, it's everywhere. It's great. I love that number. After 4 years, I would be used to speaking with patients, but it never seems to get easier. Maybe I'm just too nice. I don't know. I wouldn't really call that a flaw. I think if you get too complacent, I don't know. I worry about people that get too comfortable with that. I understand it, but I worry about people. Oh, thank you, Prometheus. Thank you so much. You look like you've had a rough night, Mr. Thompson. Did you get any sleep, or were you up all night? I asked the pale, skinny man. I think I got a few hours, but not too much. I'm feeling awful this morning, and I think there's something wrong. I don't have much of an appetite, and I'm having a hard time remembering things from any farther back than last week or so. Ooh. You were here last week, I replied. Mr. Thompson, you've been here for a few months now. Do you happen to know why? Any recollection at all? I think I might remember a little bit. Something about a car. Something about an accident, maybe? His voice trembled as he spoke. He was able to adjust his head to turn and look at me before speaking again. Am I even close? Was I in an accident? I picked up the clipboard and hung loosely over the foot of the bed. Oh. The yellow and white papers were scribbled on in what was only barely legible handwriting. Oh, Violet, all the hearts. Oh, thank you. All the hearts right back to you. Name, Vince Thompson. Age, 47. Easton, Maryland. So, oh, Keith. Okay, I'll try to remember that, Keith. I'm terrible with names. Bear with me, but... Alright, welcome, Keith. Mr. Thompson was brought under fear of his mental stability after attempting to murder his ex-girlfriend, further known as Miss Redding, with his car at approximately 1:03 a.m. Mr. Thompson and Miss Redding had an argument involving her fidelity. Mr. Thompson, in a fit of what Miss Redding called blind rage, got into his car and attempted to run her over in front of the residence they shared. Okay, I'm going to grab a drink real quick. Okay. Sorry, reading makes my throat get a little dry. Okay. As Miss Redding attempted to flee, Mr. Thompson followed in pursuit, eventually striking Miss Redding, rendering her unconscious and badly injured. Mr. Thompson then ran his vehicle into a tree, injuring himself in the process. No alcohol was detected in his system upon arrival of paramedics. Mr. Thompson is kept for treatment of his injuries, followed immediately by psychological evaluation and arrest. Oh. Okay, hold on a second. Excuse me, it's very cold down here. Okay, so this guy was a murderous nutjob. Great. I see a lot of ugly things here, but that is just part of the scene, I suppose. It's the norm. That's not the norm. I don't care what scene you're in. That is never the norm. Don't ever let that be the norm. You could say you were in a type of accident, I said to him, using a napkin from his side table to help him wipe the drool that rolled down from his mouth off his cheek. Gross. There was a car, and you were in it. There was a wreck, and you were involved. Tell me, is there anything else that comes to mind when you try to remember that night? Anything at all? Maybe things before the accident? He started. I feel like there was a girl. Is that right? Well, good job, Mr. Thompson. There was, in fact, a girl. Do you remember her name? Oh, God, no, he said. I don't really recall anything like that. Did I know the girl? Is she okay? She is, I replied. She was hurt pretty badly, though. You did a number on her. Seems she's going to be okay, though, from what I can tell. I flipped through the other pages and read over the specifications of Mr. Thompson's injuries. The bastard had made it out all right, besides a bump on the head and a broken leg. I lifted up his sheets to look at the leg that's wrapped tightly inside of a plaster cast. Ouch. How's the leg feeling? Any better? It's not too bad, I don't think, he answered. They said it snapped. Shit. I can tell you that it sure felt like it snapped yesterday. It is a little better, though, as long as I don't play with it. Not exactly ready to run a marathon on it yet, though, you know? Why would you play with your leg? A bit excessive. Yes, absolutely, Crystalline. Absolutely. Yeah. My goodness. I certainly wouldn't recommend that, in my opinion. I said, running my hand over the man's leg. Do not touch a broken leg. If the person is complaining that it hurts, even if it's feeling a little better, don't touch it. Just don't do that. That's creepy. That's weird. Don't do that. That's not professional. Are you feeling any pain anywhere currently? Not much, just a little under the cast. But I think that is normal. He lifted his head a few inches off the pillow to look down at his leg. You're not going to ask me to wiggle my toes, are you? It might make me cry. He chuckled. No, I said. Nothing like that. But I did want to give you a little something to ease the pain. Would that be okay? Well, that's nice, even though he's crazy. I feel like this is 2 pages. Nope. Okay, it's 1 page. Drugs? Yes. Yes, drugs, Rev. Absolutely. Of course, he replied as I began to fasten the straps on his bed snug around his arm. Are those really necessary? The sweat started coming from his brow even more now. Ooh, I think I know what's going to happen. Maybe this person isn't as complacent as we thought. Mr. Plaguesworth, I heard drugs! Yeah, you did. You heard drugs. Just a precaution. We do it for everyone. I pulled the leather-padded straps tighter and tighter. Ooh, kinky. Just relax for me. I could hear his breathing get heavier as I finished his legs. Okay, I think somebody has kink. Crystalline, you mean for party favors? Prometheus, doing well for your first... Oh, thank you. Thank you. Fiend, sounds fun. You people are after my heart. I love it. I changed my mind, he sputtered out rapidly. I don't want any meds. Please don't. Oh, come on. It's fun. Pretty lady make good mouth words. Oh, I try. I'm very shy. I finished yanking the bindings and buckling him down. He struggled harder, but soon realized that it wasn't worth the energy. These restraints were made to hold the strongest of men. I peered around the room to find the clippers used to remove the plaster from the patient's appendage. I found them with a large smile and began cutting the cast off of Mr. Thompson. He screamed, but I fixed that little problem with one of his own hospital socks shoved deep down his throat. I hope it was clean. But then again, considering what he did, he might deserve a little bit of this. Let's see, Violent. I've never known it was your first dream if I didn't know beforehand. Oh, you are so sweet. Fiend. Grippy socks. Very grippy, apparently. Very dry. Can you imagine the taste? That's gotta be... Stick to ball gags, everybody. Safety first. Once the cast was off, it only took one swing to snap the leg that lay flushed and damp from sweat. I can only imagine the smell. The noise came from right under my closed fist as I brought it down. Mr. Plaguesworth, so those grippy socks from the psych wards are the best thing about them. Crystalline art, good hygiene is my king. You know, good hygiene. That's a good habit. The second swing changed its shape and made it cave in with pressure, pushing his foot forward like the leg of an ostrich. All right, that's a fun visual, actually. Mr. Thompson tried to holler from the pain, but the sock choked back the yells. I shook my head at him more. Cheesecake is following. I love cheesecake. Thank you. This will help the pain, Mr. Thompson. This will make all of it stop, I promise. I shot the syringe of cleaning fluid, I had brought with me for just the occasion, into Mr. Thompson's neck. I could tell I got the vein, since he was writhing and trying to put pressure on the entry point after I drew the needle. I stood there until he was dead. Oh yeah, cleaning fluid. Fiend, that will get the job done. Yes. That you came in at an interesting time, Cheesecake. I turned around and headed towards the door of his room, leaving the doctor's coat I had stolen thrown over the foot of the bed where I had found the clipboard. Now back in my standard patient's gown, I started back towards my room. Why I had chosen Mr. Thompson, I don't know. I was just trying to have a little fun, and us here in Cheddington Institute, we all deserve to die. Every last sick one of us. Amanda Jensen, called out a voice behind me. What have I told you about leaving your room? I'm sorry, nurse. I was just heading back now. Don't let me see you roaming the halls again. All patients have to stay in their rooms until escorted by a staff member. I know, ma'am, I said, turning my back to the nurse. Only doctors can roam the halls, and I am no doctor. Okay, and that's the end of medicine. That actually kind of went the way that I expected. Let's see. Violent. Rev, a fan of your work. Oh, yes. Yes, Rev, I don't know if you heard before, but he did this magnificent scarification on my chest, and he also did my entire back. He is awesome. And he does suspensions and stuff, too. Shh. Oh, come on. You did. You did. Don't be shy about it. You did amazing. He's the best mod artist. I highly recommend him. If you're local enough to the area. You know what? If you can travel, go to him anyway. All right. The next story is my good friend Sammy. Crystalline art, beautiful work indeed. I creeped already. Oh. Yeah, thank you, Violent. Yeah, see, they all know you did it. Mr. Plaguesworth. Damn, so I really gotta make a trip there now. Yes, please do. We're pretty nice out here. Beware of some of the locals. Fiend. Rev stabbed my lip once. Good time. It is a good time. He stabbed, he did my Medusa that unfortunately I lost. I'm hoping to either get it redone or replace it with something similar that doesn't touch the webbing in the back. Glad to know it didn't fall off. Uh-huh. Alright. I'm gonna get into this story. You guys can keep talking. I've always been here. I've always been on the streets, on the run, or just simply down on my luck. There was never a time where I didn't have to walk up and down the corners for change and food, only to receive mostly ugly glares and hateful words beckoning for me to get a job or get off the drugs. I never touched a drug, and if I could get myself a job, if anyone would hire someone who looked like me, please believe I would take it in a heartbeat. It's not as easy as you think. It's tough to prepare for an interview when you get kicked out of gas station bathrooms for trying to wash up or have your bag stolen from the shelter while you slept. But this is the life I lead. Oh, that's so sad. It's really hard to pick yourself up when you're in that kind of situation. Fiend, get a job and get on the drugs. Oh, Mr. Plaguesworth. I'm sorry, I was in school and helping my daughter paint her nails and toes. Oh, I missed a few things. Okay. Okay, okay. Somebody missed a suspension. I missed your suspension earlier. I'm sorry. I was just waking up, and I tried really hard to make it. So I'm sorry. Let's see. Crystalline, the Deep South. Oh no, little Nikki laugh. You guys are goofy. You're silly. You're silly. I love it. Or rather, the life I led until recently. My family life wasn't great. Hell, it wasn't even okay. I can sort of remember my mother with her short, wiry hair, making me breakfast in the morning, swearing up and down at every little thing that would stand in her way, but not in determination. No, she swore because she loathed the idea of having to provide for someone other than herself, and I simply wasn't old enough, at the ripe age of 6, to make myself a meal other than cereal. And after eating cereal for 10 or 11 days in a row, your stomach starts to hurt, and you ask for something else. She hated it. I know my name was mixed in with all the swearing. She wasn't exactly shy about that, nor did she try to hide it. Oh, that's so sad. That's so sad. No child should have to hear that. I mean, the swearing itself isn't so bad, but when you direct it at your child, it's... they remember it. They remember it for the rest of their lives. I never knew my dad. My mother wasn't about to keep his ugly past away from us either. I knew by the time I was 7 that he was a dirty, rotten, toothless bastard. And a worthless running son of a bitch. Oh, one of those. As I got older, I understood deeper that my dad was using heroin, just like my mother, and had left both of us as soon as my mother told him that she was having me. Oh, so sad. Let's see, Rev DK, it's a great time. Get in touch. Oh, yes, the suspensions are awesome. I only got to do one suspension with him, and I won't go into details. It was great. My favorite part was actually getting pierced. That's always my favorite part, is getting pierced. But it's intense. If you want an interesting experience that is almost otherworldly, I recommend it. But be ready for pain. Okay. I lost my place. It's okay, I'll find it. Here we go. She hadn't seen him since. Said he must have hopped one of those CSX trains or something, because she knew he didn't have enough money for a bus ticket. I always liked to think that he was still in the city somewhere, wandering around, maybe even looking for me. I'd like to think at that young stage in life, no, it does say that he was putting up signs, asking people if they had seen his boy. As I got older, I knew I was wrong. He wasn't coming back. Violent says, it's very spiritual. Yes. Okay, that's a better word for suspension. Spiritual. Borderline spiritual. Okay, grab a quick sip. I'm not actually drinking wine, as you could tell, because it's blue. I just, it seemed better in a glass than out of the bottle. When I was 9, my mother overdosed and died. Oh, that's a way to start a paragraph. I remember looking at her as she laid on the mattress in the vacant house we stayed in, and I knew even before the ambulance showed up that she was gone too. Let's see. Oh yes, welcome Kitsune. Let's see, Rev DK. I thought my eyes were fucking with me. I thought that was blue. Yes, it is blue. Mr. Plaguesworth wine class, because aesthetics. Yes, gotta be fancy. Even if it's just random brand electrolyte drink. Crystalline. Wait, I missed the wine glass. Okay, I'll take another sip just for you. See, it matches my light. I just had to be careful not to spill it again. I spilled it right before the stream, and that's kind of part of the delay. I spilled all over myself. It was a fun time. I think the carpet's still a little wet. Let's see. I was told that I could run to the corner store and use the payphone for free if it was for 911, but I could only use it for the ambulance, not for the police. I was raised to know that the police were the bad guys, and that if I was ever to run into an officer, I was to run as fast as I could and never let them catch me. My mother instilled such good qualities in me as a boy. Great. So when my mother didn't wake up, I made my way to the corner bodega, said hi to the clerk, and used the phone to call for the fire department. Okay. They came within 10 minutes, which is stunningly fast for this city. Yeah, hydrate. Ah, nice. Giggity. Fiend. Oh no, I blew myself. Aw, cute. Caterpillar Connie! Okay, we have to welcome my lovely sister, Caterpillar Connie. She does a lot of art and drawing, and she's been an amazing person my entire life. I've known her for, my whole life, like over 30 years, and she's always been there. Very sweet lady. Definitely check out her stuff too. She could always use more friends. I don't care what you say, you need more friends. Mr. Plaguesworth, at least story times are helping me get through this project. Oh, what are you working on? Oh, well, I'm happy to help you through your project. Prometheus, yay, welcome. Oh, thank you. Oh, yes, she is my big sis. That's right. Accept the love, Connie. Just accept it. Kitsune, gotta love the siblings. Absolutely. We didn't duel like most siblings do. She's been my best friend this entire time. Prometheus, awesome. Yes. Mr. Plaguesworth, college final project. Oh. You can do this. You'll get through this. Prometheus, I love watching people do art. Well, give her a watch. Connie, you need to go stream so that he can watch you. I'm probably going to do some drawing too. I haven't drawn in a long time, so that's also part of the reason why I started doing Twitch, was to start drawing again. Alright, back to the story. Enough prattling. When they saw the conditions I was living in and realized how bad the situation was, they didn't even bother asking me any questions. Before I knew what was happening, I was swept up by one... Oh, Connie's following me. Thank you. Thank you, big sis. Before I knew what was happening, I was swept up by one of the boys in blue that I had been afraid of for my entire life and put in the back of a squad car. When I got to the station, they asked me a bunch of questions and gave me some food. Oh, that was nice of them. I could see so much pity in the eyes of the other people in the station, which was completely new to me, and realized that they wanted to help, even the police. Yes, decent people want to help, especially children. That's such a sad situation. Prometheus, oh shit, Caterpillar, Connie is talented. Yes, she is. She's very talented. She's my big sis, and we used to draw with each other growing up. Oh, don't be sorry for being late. Do not. It's completely okay. I'm just glad you're here. It took about a year for me to get into a proper foster home across the state. I hated it there, almost more than living with my mother. The lady, Mrs. Haben, was kinder than Mr. Haben, but both were cruel and punishing. They would beat me if I acted out. Oh no. Which every 10-year-old boy did. Only Mrs. Haben would sometimes cry afterwards. She knew the monster that she was. Unfortunately, Mr. Haben wasn't so self-aware. That's so sad. That's so sad. Children should never have to deal with that. Alright, my pages are sticking. After a particularly difficult night, when I was 14, I decided to make a run for it. I grabbed what few things I had and snuck out the window, and just like my father presumably did, I jumped on the closest moving train and hoped it would get me back into the city. Oh, why would you go back to the city? I'm somebody that just doesn't like being in the city, so I don't understand that it's so loud. I suppose luck was on my side, as it took me just a mile or so out of town. It was a strange relief being back in what seemed familiar, even if it was such a devastating place for me to recall. I walked to the east side of town and back to the group of lots where I stayed in the years before. The buildings were gone. I can assume that something like my mother's death was enough for the city to say, enough, and knock the rundown buildings to the ground. The rubble remained. Wow, they didn't even clean that up. I remember spending a few minutes sitting on the brick and stone, kicking dirt around and thinking it was the most closure I was going to have. So I soaked in the best I could. Man, this kid. When does it get creepy? This is just depressing. Oh, man. I wandered around town, hitting the corners, stopping and begging without much luck when my feet would get tired. I had to be careful because even though I looked way older than my age, I could still be picked up by the police and they would simply return me to the Habans. And the beating that would be awaiting me. Every cop car I saw would cause me to walk swiftly down the road or jump behind some median barrier to avoid them. I did this for 4 years until I was 18. And there's a typo here. It says, and that what the year I met Sammy, but we all know it's supposed to be, and that was the year I met Sammy. Sometimes it's good to get an extra editor on your books. I'm still enjoying this, though. No, not trying to criticize, but editors are very important for little typos like that. Let's see, Fire and Mischief. Oh, your phone's about to die. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for coming by. I really appreciate you. One night, when I was walking back towards the overpass I was staying under that week, I heard voices behind me. There were 3 men, just a few years older than I was, walking towards me rather quickly. Run! Run! They had their hands in their pockets, except for one who had his hand up under his coat. Run! I started to pick up my pace, but they matched my speed. Just run! In a matter of seconds, they were all running. Yeah, see? Them chasing me down as fast as we could. I could feel my chest expanding as every breath went in. I was in terrible shape, and my health was poor overall, so I knew I wouldn't be able to stay away from them for long. Without much thought, I slid into the basement window of another vacant house that someone had pulled the plywood from, hoping they would just run past. They did not. I crouched in the dark corner of the room, everything around me black. I could hear them searching the room, kicking around the empty bottles and bricks. I wanted to make it back to the window, but I could see the silhouettes. Oh, is this 2 separate? Okay. Silhouettes of the men flash against the dim light from the night sky coming in from it, certainly blocking my way. I held my breath and waited. Let's see. Yeah, have a good night. Caterpillar Connie. Hands in the pocket and running? It sounds pretty awkward. Maybe the hands came out of the pockets once they started running. One of the men was hollering and swearing like mad. Something about his leg, and he thought that something had bit him. Then a crunching sound. Then another. Lots of crunching. The screams of one of the men died down as I saw the other 2 attempt to make it out of the window. Whatever was in the darkness pulled the second one down. I could see the shadowy hand reach up over his back, extending its thin, long arm, grab his hair, and pull him back into the window, folding his body in half, as it re-entered the room through the 2-foot by 3-foot hole. My heart sank in my stomach. This thing wasn't human. You'd think? His screaming ceased in only a few seconds after a few more crunching sounds. Crystalline art, it's like a duck running. Yes, yes. Caterpillar Connie, that's how you lose teeth. It is, if you have teeth to begin with. Maybe some of them didn't have teeth? Take another sip. I'm so glad I brought the bottle down, because I will need to refill that. I cowered in the corner, waiting for my turn to come. I wasn't even going to try to run from this thing, whatever it was. I knew better. There was a moment of silence before, at my feet, I felt warm, wet cloth. Are you sure it's cloth? I could hear the wet cloths being thrown on top of one another, all in front of me. I reached down, trembling, and picked up the cloths. Clothes? Clothes. Ha! Okay. It's clothes. Okay, there was a typo. Right, it got fixed, though. They were soaked, and I knew it was all blood. I dropped the clothes, only to have them pushed closer to me. I picked them up again, feeling as though I didn't have a choice. Oh, it's an offering. You have a friend. What do I do with these? I asked into the dark, my voice shaking uncontrollably. Something pulled them from my hands and ruffled them around. The sound of squishing and tearing made my stomach churn. Then the creature grabbed my wrist. I could tell it was emaciated, and it says withers. I think it means withered. The skin was tightly wrapped around the bone with no muscles whatsoever. It pulled my hand out and placed it in 2 squares of leather. Wallets. It pushed them into my chest, and then I heard it scurry back to another corner of the room. I simply said, "Thank you," and started towards the window. I stepped out and stood on the sidewalk, staring back into the dark. I knelt down again and quietly repeated myself, "Thank you." Rev DK, so many typos. Yeah, and you can't really blame the authors for that. He is an independent author, so I can't imagine that he has someone else to edit his stuff, but it's very important to get someone to do that, someone other than yourself, because you're going to end up missing that in your own work. But I'm still enjoying the stories. Let's see. The next morning, I woke up and checked the gift from this terrifying stranger. The wallets had a few dollars in them and some ID of 2 men. I recall the police reports on the news saying that they were missing, but nobody ever found them. Or the others. But Sammy was always there. Every time I needed to get away from a sticky situation, any time I was bothered by the thieves or muggers, which happened way more often than you could imagine, I would just leave them back home for Sammy to take care of. He appreciated the meals that I certainly appreciated the leftovers. I no longer felt miserable out on the streets. The income was steady, and though it's not what I would typically want to do to provide for myself, I felt safe for the first time in my life. If ever I was bothered by the terrors from the streets, all I had to do was run and introduce them to my good friend Sammy. Alright, that's the end of that one. See, crystalline art. I'm not gonna lie, I've been here the whole time and I'm completely lost. So this guy had a very harsh life and became homeless, and these guys wanted to, I guess, probably mug him or... Oh, hello. Come on up. Come on. We have a guest. Okay. So these guys were chasing him. He ran into a basement, and there was a monster in the basement. And basically, he became friends with the monster. So that's essentially the story. Is he named it Sammy, I guess. Okay, all right. Can I show you? So this is Kasaba. Yes, he wears a sweater. Yes, I like to keep him warm and cozy. This is my little handsome boy, and he is always dressed in the finest. Aww. And no problem, Crystalline. I'm happy to go back over things. If you need me to reread anything, just let me know. All right, the next story, which I kind of read as practice last night, but didn't post anywhere. It's called The Harvest King. I am a coward, and I may have begun the end of everyone I ever knew. I used to live in a small town, another small town, out in the western half of South Carolina. We were a small community, shut out from the normal, which is something that I admittedly am still learning. It's different out there. Things are faster. People are meaner. Buildings are huge, and there are simply so many people. So many people. Yes, I understand this. Caterpillar Connie, Bubbles is farting. Bubbles is her Great Dane, adorable dog that I cannot wait to meet. I need to meet this dog so badly. She seems like good company. Where I was from, we didn't have all of these things that you have here. We didn't have business or industry. Those things weren't part of our lifestyle. We didn't have a need for cars or buses. Buses is spelled wrong. Or even bicycles. The community was small. If you needed to get somewhere, actually no, buses might be spelled right. I'm wrong on this. Maybe. I'm not sure. If you needed to get somewhere, you would just start walking. Caterpillar Connie, she's a butt. But she's your butt. Yeah. She's adorable too. Okay, it is spelled wrong. Thank you, Fiend. Yeah, he put 2 S's in there. What do you want? Okay. Kitty needs attending. So... Clothes are much brighter out here, and people dress in very strange ways. People like their clothing tight and restrictive. I know I do. I don't understand how people would ever intend on working in such small clothes, but then again, everyone out here doesn't need to work quite like we did. Crystalline, this could be a drinking game. It could be. You know what? It could be. I'm not here to judge you if you decide to grab some wine. We made everything ourselves. Our food, our tools, our homes. Kasaba, please pick a spot. We raised our own livestock and taught our children in ways of the world and of the Lord. I see people attending schools here for many years after your 14th, which is when we would start getting to work in the community. 14. Even now, I sit in this chair and hit buttons on this mechanism that I still don't rightly understand to tell you these things. Your world and mine are immensely different. What, do you want to read? You want to read? Here, you can read. No? Hi. Oh, that is so sweet. Which is one of the reasons I had to leave. I never intended on trying to get out of the community. My family, just like all the others, had been there for as long as we could remember, and there had never been any reason to leave. We, just like this normal society of yours have traditions that need to be upheld and issues that need to be dealt with. I broke the traditions. I ruined my family. I destroyed my friends. It's all my fault. Probably not. Probably isn't. My last day in the community started like many others, even though I knew that it was going to be significantly different. It was the harvest day, and on this day, we were all to meet in the community center, a large open field in the middle of the homes and farmland, to celebrate. There was always an abundance of food and drink, and we all wore our finest clothing, and people would play music to dance to. It was the happiest day of the year. And that year, I was old enough to be the Harvest King. The Harvest King was the most highest held position for the following year in the community. People would hang pictures of the king around town, and we would add them to our prayers every night, like it did anything. Only the strongest and the most worthy of young men could be considered the Harvest King. And this year, I could just feel that it was going to be my year. Sunny Seeds, anyone else getting very culty vibes? Right? I think you're onto something here. I was both nervous and excited as we headed towards the community center. My mother, father, 2 sisters, and I. They exclaimed during the walk, "Make way for the future king!" And we would pretend they would pretend to dust the ground in front of my feet. Oh, that's kind of adorable. I knew there were 2 other boys that I would be competing against. However, there was nothing I could do to better my chances now. The community voted just days earlier, and today we would learn the results. Fiend, completely normal behavior. Yeah, okay, yeah. What does the Harvest King have to do? Cassava, you reading? Can I see the book, please? Please, my sweet. The community center was full of people, as expected, upon our arrival. We danced and sang, and I drank my fill of wine made from the vineyard on the edge of the community. This person's 14. Just reminding you, he's 14. I was given a purple robe to wear, along with the 2 other boys who had their hopes for the position just as high as mine. The sun started to go down, and the 3 of us were led to a large platform in the center that had been constructed specifically for this event. We stood upon it, high above the cheering crowd, as our Reverend joined us, hushing the audience to hear him speak. Taking a sip. Are you trying to read in my stead, mister? Well, thank you. That's very sweet. I don't know if you can hear him purring, but he's purring very loudly. It's adorable. "Ladies and gentlemen, hear me now," he shouted. "We hear you, Father," they shouted back in unison. "These 3 young men before are standing here as farmers, workers, and members of our family. These men have attempted to prove themselves worthy of the title of Harvest King for the last year, and you all have decided. We have here the crown of the harvest." He held up a large crown made from all sorts of earthly grasses. I hope you're not allergic. The crowd exploded into cheers as the 3 of us boys looked at the crown in envy. Caterpillar Connie. Pee pee poo poo. Hi, Eric. Yeah, I can tell immediately it was you. Hi. It's good to see you. Rev DK, can we say Wicker Man? Right? I think it's gonna get weird here. Eric's laughing. Yeah. Eric is my brother-in-law. He's the one that gave me the name Spanky many years ago. Let's see. Only one shall wear it in pride, the father continued. Are you ready to find out the name of your new Harvest King? Tell us, the people yelled, putting their hands into the air, palms facing the darkening sky. Please tell us of our new king. The father pulled a small sheet of paper from his pocket, inspected it, and then smiled. The congregation fell silent, waiting for his answer. Without a word, the father walked over to us three and placed the crown tightly onto my head. The community hollered and screamed in joy. People started to sing again as I was lifted into the air from the people that rushed the platform. I was carried around the field as people called my name and handed me all types of food. It wasn't until they carried me back to the platform that I felt my stomach drop. The visual I get right there is the live-action Grinch movie when he's in the town and they're just shoving tons of food in his face. He starts nipping at their hands. That's the kid in me right there. I knew the responsibilities of the Harvest King, and I knew exactly what I needed to do to ensure the proper harvest for the following year. Every man and woman in the community marched towards that platform, instructing the younger children to go home and get to bed. Just got played live. Hand sniffing. What? Oh, okay. Caterpillar Coney, that's your favorite part of that movie? Yeah, you know, it's mine too. It's something about it. See, I felt the lump in my throat grow large and heavy as my legs were kicked from behind, dropping me to my knees. The father stood above me, now brandishing his ceremonial knife, which I have one upstairs. It's very nice. Another man came behind me and tied my hands behind my back before getting a fistful of my hair. There's a lot of hair pulling in this book, and I'm into it. It's cool. He pulled my head backwards. I don't think he's doing it nicely, though. So that all I could see was the night sky, stars shining brightly, my throat now exposed to the audience. Reb decay, kinky, yes. Caterpillar Connie, yes, hair pulling. Oh, you're into that too? Oh, I'm learning more about my sister every day. It is today that... There's a typo. I'm so sorry, guys. It is today that it says we're celebrate our new Harvest King, but I think it's just supposed to be we. It is today that we celebrate our new Harvest King, shouted the father. May he bring us much fortune and prosperity, shouted the crowd in response. Fiend, drink. All right, getting a drink. Just for you, Fiend. Uh-oh, I can't get it back in. There we go. I felt my eyes start to water as the fear of death crept over me. I was ashamed of this feeling, as I had seen so many Harvest Kings, supposed to be kings, it says king, take their fate with courage and dignity in the past. I knew they struggled, as they would writhe on the ground for a few moments, but they never let out a cry before they succumbed to death. Kasaba, please, stop. Oh my goodness. I don't know what he's playing with. I'm so sorry. And yet here I was feeling... He probably has a mouse. And yet here I was feeling like a child, wanting the safety of his mother's arms again. As long as he doesn't put it on my lap, we're okay. We can ignore it. I saw the knife now being held over my head as the father began his prayer. That was enough for me to decide. I stood up as fast as I could and leapt from the platform. I ran until my legs burned towards the woods that surrounded the community and into the dark trees. I could hear men chasing me and screaming. I heard women crying and footsteps growing louder behind me. I ran and ran and ran until the patter of feet stopped and the light of their torches turned back into the shadows of the forest. Then I cried. Banana Lips! Oh, okay. I know who Banana Lips is. That would be Eric. Welcome, Banana. It's Eric. It's my brother-in-law. I'm so glad you're here. I walked for 3 days until I found another community. This one much different than mine. This community being the first I had ever seen of your world. It took some time, but I was able to beg on the streets and make enough of this currency to buy my first meal. How shameful it was to go from a king and in only a few days be brought down to a beggar. My family would be so disappointed, but I'm sure I will no longer have to worry about them. There won't be a community for long. With no harvest king, there's no harvest. With no harvest comes no food. They will surely starve. I'm a coward, and I may have begun the end of everyone I ever knew. It sounds like they kind of need it to end, if they're slicing throats. Yes, hello, Banana Lips. Or Eric. Which do you want me to call you? On here. Yeah, I'll call you both. Buttface. Okay. So, Banana Lips should be referred to as Buttface. RevDK, yeet to the fam. Okay, Banana Lips doesn't care. She doesn't speak for me. You are absolutely right. Caterpillar Connie, I am your god. Alright, you two. Do I have to mediate here? Live? In front of everybody? Children. Okay. Let's go to the next story. You showed up right in time for another story. This one's called Sleepover. Crystalline Art makes popcorn. Fiend is getting popcorn. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Jinx. Somebody owes somebody a drink. You guys are adorable. Beat me to it by a second. Well then, I think that means technically you owe her the soda, right? Somebody owes somebody a soda. I'm not good at this. I was invited to stay the night over my friend Jeremy's house when I was a little boy. I remember the anticipation I had building up inside me all day because he had just gotten the new Super Mario Brothers. And though I knew there would be other kids there besides me, I would at least get one turn playing. Oh. We were not too big into television at my house, and my parents were never the type to allow video games, so events like this were always something to look forward to. It says forwards, but I know it's supposed to be forward. Unfortunately, this would be the last I stayed over anyone else's house. Oh. Okay, Fiend doesn't drink soda. You want an Irish coffee? Okay, well, that's good. Caterpillar Connie, that sounds good. It does sound good. It sounds really good. Coffee with booze. Oh, that is a good prize. Mr. Plaguesworth. Me and a coffee fiend. Yeah. I think secretly, well, not secretly. I think everybody here is probably a coffee fiend. It wouldn't surprise me. The night started off pretty normal. We sat around in his basement and watched the movie with his older brother, Chris. Chris was a decent enough guy. He was 14. Everybody is 14 in this book. They're all 14. He was 14 at the time, and we all thought he was pretty cool, even though he picked on Jeremy quite a bit. We ate a lot of junk food. Jeremy's mom made a big dinner for everyone, and as the night came to a close, we grabbed the Super SNES, the NES, from the closet and plugged it in. So I'm wondering what the timeline of this is, because some kids just like classic games, but I'm guessing this is probably back when the system first came out. And started on Mario. Coffee is my spirit animal. Aw. SNES is a classic, yes. Or SNES. Whichever way you say it. Around 10 p.m., Jeremy's mom yelled down that it was time for us all to go to bed. We yelled back, okay, in droning unison and turned off the game system. Who just listens to that? I don't think any kids would. An appreciated reference on here either way. Yes. Early to mid-90s. Thank you, Fiend. I was a little bit young for it. My cousin had a Genesis, so I never got to play the SNES. Making my way to my designated sleeping bag, something felt kind of off. I remember looking around the room and thinking that it was strange that Chris had decided to go back upstairs, even though he was allowed to stay up later and take the Nintendo into his room if he wanted. I shrugged it off and laid my head back down for the evening. He left that curtain open. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, I was awoken by a loud thud coming across the room. I didn't bother pulling my head up from my sleeping bag, thinking that it was most likely just one of the boys getting up to use the bathroom or something. I closed my eyes, but within seconds, the bump returned, this time closer to my back. Jeremy? I whispered, trying to keep a hushed tone. Jeremy, is that you? The thud came again, closer. Jeremy, I called a little louder. Thud. Jeremy, I said in regular volume, still not wanting to wake everyone up, but still to let whoever was awake know that I was up and they were bothering me. Thud, right next to me. Then again, slightly further away, over towards the closet. Again, and again. The closet door opened quietly, and then shut. Jeremy, stop, I shouted at him, now waking everyone else in the room. Jeremy hitting the light switch by the stairs. Nope, that is how that is laid out. Okay, I didn't read that wrong. When the bulb from the top of the staircase dimly lit the room, everyone was still in their sleeping bags, rubbing their eyes and wondering what was going on. Okay, Penny and Alistair say hi. Hi, Penny and Alistair. I'm reading scary stories. They're not that scary, though. It's okay. They're not too bad. Some of them get a little gruesome, so just fair warning on that. I think this one might be okay. Let's see. What's wrong? Jeremy asked me. Why are you yelling? He spoke through his balled fist that covered his yawns. Do you need me to get my mom? Before I could answer his question, Jeremy's mother came running through the basement door, wrapping a robe around herself, wondering why we were all awake. I tried to explain to them that there was a loud thud next to my sleeping bag, and that it was making noises all across the room, but they didn't want to hear it. Jeremy's mother said that it must have been my imagination, but I pleaded with her to check the room. She refused, telling me that it was going to be all right. I mentioned that the closet door had opened, and she said that she had better not find any of us boys going into the closet this late at night. That it was time for bed and not for playing. Fiend, scary stories. Yeah, I mean, well, keep in mind they are children, so it could creep them out. Oh, they're getting ready for bed. All right, well, I hope they sleep well. What time is it? And they're up late. Okay. No judgment here. It's the weekend. We all laid back down and went to sleep. Except me, of course, who stayed up staring into the darkness, waiting to hear more noises that never came. Oh, it's 9:30 there. Okay. Never mind. I'm sorry. It's 11:30 something here. The next morning, we all woke to a very strange smell. It was a sweet smell, but not like a bakery or anything pleasant like that. It was a pungent treat that made you squint your eyes as you caught wind of it. Mr. Plaguesworth, my kids are running around with my stream mask saying, "I'm a bird." Nice. He should have pranked them since they fell asleep. Right? Sunny Seeds, my youngest, is snoring loudly on my chest. Oh, how precious. That's sweet. Okay. So that pungent smell, we all looked around the room, thinking that maybe someone had soiled the bed. Ew. But at that age, we were all beyond that stage. We ran up the stairs for breakfast, laughing and accusing each other of passing gas, shoving one another up the staircase, and leaving our mess of sleeping bags and blankets covering the floor of the basement. As it should be. You don't clean that up until after breakfast. It better be pancakes. Or waffles. Fiend, my dumb cat is asking for more treats. Well, it sounds like you need to attend to Kitty. But I'm also a sucker. I always end up giving in. Jeremy's mother went down to straighten up a bit and heard her scream. I think there's supposed to be a "we heard her scream." She ran back up the stairs, telling us all to go outside and wait on the sidewalk, which we did, while she grabbed for the phone. I remember that was the first time I had actually seen an adult cry outside of the movies, and it scared the hell out of me. Oh, you just gave him greenies? Oh, so he's just being a little greedy, isn't he? Oh, greedy kitties. Jeremy didn't come to school for about a week after that. When he returned, we all asked what happened, what was going on, since the police had visited each of us, asking us questions about that night. They were particularly interested in the bumping and the thudding noise that I had heard. He didn't tell us for almost a month, but eventually it got out from one of the other boys' parents that they had found Chris's body in the closet. That was the older brother. Mutilated into a pulpy mess, a trail of dark bloody fluids streaking right past my sleeping bag. To make matters worse, who, or what, ever did this had scratched into the wall. We didn't like him. Oh, there's more. Okay, I thought that would be the end of that. But no, there's more. Fiend, he should have shared this. Yes, he should have. You better share that controller. There's 2-player games. Jeremy and his family moved away after that, and we didn't talk for years. I finally caught up with him briefly online via Facebook. He told me that he was doing well, and his parents had finally, as far as he knew, recovered from the incident. That's a lie. You never recover from something like that. If you lose a child, you never recover. You learn to cope, but you never recover. He apologized for that night, which was something I never expected him to do, nor did I find it necessary. I felt terrible for him. After a few minutes of talking, I signed off, and that was that. We didn't talk again. That was about 2 years ago. But I think I might need to give him a call. As I unloaded my boxes of clothes into the closet of my new apartment, I saw that there were scratches on the inside wall. They said, "We didn't like him. We liked you better." Ooh. I decided to contact Jeremy again and ask him to grab a cup of coffee with me. I figured I should lead with something a little more lighthearted, or risk him wanting to join me, or not wanting to. No, it says wanting to join me at all. But it's not wanting to join me at all. I can't imagine he would willingly walk into conversation involving whatever it was that killed his brother. Before you tell me that I'm a terrible person for this, I know. I feel terrible that I wasn't honest up front, but I needed to know more information about this and felt like the best way to get it. It felt like this was the best way to get it. I'm sorry. Well, I mean, you were right there, and you were hearing everything, and you're kind of a witness. There's a certain amount of closure that one should have with that. I was incredibly surprised when he contacted me back immediately, and agreed to go. It says agree, but it's agreed. But with urgency. He asked if we could meet last night, and said he was happy that I got a hold of him. That if I hadn't, he was going to reach out to me. We ended up at Dunkin' Donuts around 12:30 a.m. Grabbed a coffee and went out to sit in the bed of my pickup to talk. I felt almost like I was with my friends in high school again, but now with Jeremy, who obviously went to a different school than I, and certainly didn't meet up with me for late night coffee runs back then. I asked him what was new and what has up in his world. I think what was up in his world. But before I could finish my question, he interrupted me. Has it contacted you yet? He asked, not looking up from his steaming cup. Has it tried to talk to you at all? I asked him to explain a little, trying to play dumb a bit. I wanted to be sure we were on the same page before I dropped this bomb on him. He looked rough. He had circles under his eyes, and his hair was a mess. The truth about his hygiene was more of a mystery. The poor guy looked like a wreck, and I didn't want to throw any more weight on his shoulders just yet. Yes, it. The thing that got my brother. It finds ways to talk to people. It isn't exactly subtle about it either. If it has, you'd know. Did it contact you yet? I nodded my head quietly. He took a sip of his drink before speaking. Speaking of which, I'm going to take a sip of my drink. I'd have to refill this soon. Don't fall. Okay. Then you need to leave. Soon. Now, if you can. Is there anywhere else you can stay for a while? No, I said back. What is this? What are you saying, Jeremy? This thing. This creature. It's looking for you now. What is it? I replied. I don't know. I've never seen it. No one has, I don't think. But it hunts, and it takes down people like you and me. People like Chris. Did you see it that night? Did you see it take my brother? Jeremy asked. I told him that I hadn't seen anything, that it was too dark. However, I tried talking to it, if he recalled. That was a mistake, he said. You shouldn't have let it know that you were awake. I did, and now it hasn't left me alone in years. Wait a minute, I said loud enough to startle him. You were awake too? You saw it? I didn't see it, but it heard me. It bumped my foot as it moved my brother. I made a noise, and the dragging noise stopped. I could feel it looking at me. I convinced myself it was a bad dream and went back to sleep until you yelled. Ooh. I need to grow my nails out so I can turn pages better. Why didn't you say anything before? What was I supposed to say? I thought I was going crazy, Jeremy said. But it has followed me since, everywhere I go. I haven't been able to live on my own, or in any place at a time for too long. We have tried to tell the police that I am being stalked and that I need help, but nothing is going to make anything better. They can't do anything. The only person I can trust anymore is my mother. I asked him about his dad, and if he was still around to help, but apparently his father passed away 2 years ago. Drank himself to death. He didn't take Chris's death as well as Jeremy and his mother had. I didn't know what to say to him. Luckily, he jumped in with his warnings. Look, man, I know it's crazy, but I'm telling you, it's coming for you, and it won't stop. The best you can do is run. I don't recommend trying to do it this week. I would recommend trying to do it this week at the latest. I'm sorry you got caught up in this. I gotta go. Though I had a million questions, I knew he certainly didn't have any answers. I let him get back into his car and leave in silence before driving back to my apartment. I spent last night in my truck across the street from the police station, though. It was the only place I felt even remotely safe. I'll keep you all updated soon, but I don't know if I can stay in my apartment. Dug into the wall of the living room were the words, "Old friends are fun, aren't they?" I woke up in my truck this morning around 8 a.m. Okay, I think this one is kind of set up like a diary of sorts. I just didn't realize it until now. Or like a blog or something. I thought about making it to work, but that would involve going back into the apartment to get a shirt and tie, which I stupidly forgot when I left the house. I guess you could say I was in a bit of a hurry to get out. I tried to get a hold of Jeremy again, and succeeded. However, his responses were all the same. Leave. Go as far away as you can. It'll never stop. Trust me. I would reply with questions that I knew I should have asked last night, but unfortunately didn't. I tried to dumb down the messages to simple yes or no type questions, but he still just continued to tell me the same thing. I'm not kidding. You need to leave. Once it has found you, it is going to hunt you down. The worst message, or at least the one that got me the most, was the one he sent, which simply said, "Remember what happened to my brother. You're going to be next. Please." That one sent a chill down my spine. I remember the look on his mother's face when she came back up the stairs. I remember how frightened she had looked. It's supposed to be looked. It says look. But more so how whatever she had just seen was something unfathomable. Something beyond death. I can only picture what this thing had done to Chris. I decided to take a look into some of the police records. Thank God for libraries and their free internet. I sure as hell wasn't going back for my laptop. I looked for images of Chris or the body, or anything that might give any clues as to what in the world actually happened, but fell short, for the most part. I had never taken the time to actually get any details about the incident. I think we all simply tried to forget that it ever happened. None of us at the sleepover really wanted to remember that night. None of us had even spoken since then. And there's another even behind it, but it's not necessary for that sentence. Then it dawned on me. Who else was at the sleepover? Maybe I wasn't the only one. I quickly logged back into Facebook and did a little research on the classmates that were there that night. Oh, Crystaline's kind of digging this story. Awesome. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, I'm liking this one a little bit better too. It's a long one, which is good. Sam Jones. Incredibly generic name. Indeed. Even though we were in a small town back then, there was no telling where exactly he could be now. From what I could see, he either didn't have a Facebook page or had moved away. And trying to find a specific Sam Jones from years and years ago is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. That wasn't happening. RevDK, same. Oh, you all got into it? Oh, nice. Fiend, it's good. The typos are kind of pulling me out of it, though. I'm sorry. I'm gonna try to be better about accommodating around those. Crystalline, it reminds me of It, for sure, but still good. Yeah, I definitely get that vibe. Tyler Brixler. Not so common of a name. Found him within a few minutes, but his page was on private, and it seemed that he hadn't logged in or updated anything in years. The picture he used was of a pretty young man, likely not even 20 years old. I didn't think that would be of any help, but I added him anyway. Never got a response, at least not yet, so he wasn't going to be any help. But finally, I got my first clue with Justin Lowers. Justin was a skinny kid that I remembered as being relatively popular. I could only assume that reputation would follow him into his adult life. His memorial page had over 3,000 people following it. Oh no. Justin had been killed about 1.5 years ago in some small Pennsylvania town. Oh hey. Apparently, some brutal attack. This, above all else, scared me more than anything. Yeah, holler at Pennsylvania. That's currently where I am, is middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. Seriously, middle of nowhere. I kept searching. William Tanner, dead. That name sounds familiar. Caterpillar Connie, PA sounds about right. Yes. You would know. It's Pennsylvania. Josh Gillen, dead. Randy Handel, dead. This immediately explained the absence of the first two boys. From the looks of it, Jeremy and I were the only ones left. And now, all of these years later, it was finally my turn to go. It had nothing to do with me seeing it. I was there, and that was more than enough of a reason for it to kill, to hunt, to take me down. I wondered if these other boys even knew what was coming. I decided to message Jeremy one more time. What have you done? Fiend says, I hate when people say Pennsylvania with pride. I don't say it with pride, I assure you. Crystalline Art, they do that? Yes. Yes, they do. Yeah, it's a fitting nickname. And Caterpillar Connie does not miss it. You know, I understand. Some areas aren't so bad. There's some nice areas. Like, close to York is pretty okay as long as you don't live in the city, but there's some okay areas around it, and it's close to everything. And Harrisburg has some nice stuff around it. And Rev says, my area. Where are you again, Rev? I forget the name of your area. You were on the way to where I was living for a bit there. Fiend, yes, exactly. Caterpillar Connie, honestly, I don't miss the East Coast. Well, you're in a very pretty area, so I don't blame you. Okay. I'm going to get back to reading. His response came in seconds, almost as if he was waiting for me to contact him. I did what my mommy told me to. Oh shit, you live in Wellsville. Nice. Oh, okay. Yeah, I forget what the area's called. I'm really bad at that. It's just another form of name that I can't remember. Crystalline Art, I'm in the hood. Well, you're close to it. You are adjacent to the hood. You're not in it. Your street's actually kind of nice. Alright, I stared at the screen for what felt like at least a minute. Jeremy said nothing more. I ran through the list of things I could reply with in my head, not wanting to have more of a conversation than necessary for obvious reasons. I decided not to say anything at all and get my stuff to leave town. Mr. Plaguesworth puts on a sombrero. Take a guess where I live close to. Oh, nice. Crystalline Art Hood adjacent. Yes, absolutely. I hated the idea of having to move away already. I didn't want to begin to think of the mess that this was going to cause in my life. But I knew very well that if I wanted to have a life, to be messed up at all, I feel like the wording was a little weird there, that I just needed to leave. I wasn't going to fight this. I shouldn't. Obviously, that hadn't worked for the other boys, and I didn't want to be as stupid as to think that 160-pound me could fight Jeremy off. I thought about how he looked when we met up and tried to do a size comparison, and there's no doubt that he would have no problem winning that battle. Not to mention, I don't exactly believe that he would fight fair. Let's see, Mr. Plaguesworth. Sandy, Alaska, actually. Oh, I'm jealous. Oh, you guys are silly. Let's see, Fiend. I was going to say Mongolia. You guys are just, you're goofy. I love it. I rush into my apartment and grab 2 or 3 black trash bags from under the sink. There wasn't any time for neatly organizing. I just wanted to throw the essentials into bags and get the hell out of Dodge. I threw in some t-shirts, jeans, a jacket, a hat, my laptop, some pictures of family that I couldn't be without, and a few other little things I knew I would need down the road, and started back to the front door of the apartment. As I walked down the hallway, the entrance in sight, I feel a hand take hold of my collar and pull me into the open, dark bathroom. It's always a bathroom. I go to scream, but a hand covers my mouth and quietly shushes me. Bite it. Just bite it. Lowering me into the shadows behind the shower curtains, I close my eyes and begin to pray that it wouldn't be painful. That it would just be swift and quick. Sorry, missing word there. Oh no, the typos. That it would just be swift and quick, and that it would be over before I could register what was happening. But nothing came. My eyes stayed shut, and I felt my teeth grinding against themselves as I waited for impact. But there was none. We just sat there in the dark, this hand over my mouth, as I heard the front door of my apartment open. I gathered the courage to open my eyes, and in the darkness, I made out the features of my childhood friend. Jeremy tightened his grip over my lips and shook his head to instruct me not to make a noise. Crystalline Art size comparison. Yes. Yeah. You know what? Not going to comment on that. Let's see. Let me grab a drink real quick. Okay. Excuse me. The footsteps from the front door were soft and slow, and coming towards us. I could feel Jeremy's hands begin to tremble as he reached down into the tub we were now both laying in, pulling up a long, shiny cleaver. I winced again, in natural fright, only making his grip on me even tighter. It's kind of another kinky scene here. The footsteps were at the bathroom door now, and I could see a silhouette standing in the threshold through the translucent curtain. It just stood there, apparently looking in. "Bring him out, baby," said the woman. "Bring Mommy the boy." I shook tremendously. I couldn't decide whether to run or to fight, so instead, I just shook. Tears filled my eyes, and I awaited Jeremy's next move. "No, Mommy," Jeremy said in a pathetic, childish whimper. "I don't want to." "Jeremy, don't be a bad boy. You know what happens to bad boys. Chris was such a bad boy." There's kinky stuff here, Fiend, you know. His mother's voice dropped in tone, almost as if her personality had been flipped completely. "And you remember what happened to him, don't you?" "I'm not a bad boy," Jeremy shouted, hugging my head against his chest. "Oh, I'm a good boy. You're bad, Mommy. You're bad." "Give me the boy," his mother shouted. "You have till the count of 3. 1, 2, and before she could get out the word 3, Jeremy threw me to the side of the tub and leapt out towards his mother. She gave a shrill scream as I watched the shadowy figure of the blade come down on her, Jeremy crying loudly as he repeated his driving of the knife. I watched the figures both lower to the ground, and the screams from his mother eventually stopped, unlike the thrusts of the knife, or Jeremy sobbing. After what felt like an eternity of crying sounds, and what I can only compare to the sounds one would hear in the back of a butcher's shop, I heard the clag of the knife hit the floor, and hurried footsteps rush out the front door of the apartment. I came out of the bathroom to find Jeremy's mother, now nothing more than a bloodied mess on the floor of the bathroom. I called the police. Crystalline Art and Brat. Just a little bit. And that brings us to where we are now. I stayed at the police station this weekend. They are setting me up with therapy, which I think I will find very helpful. They asked a lot of questions, and I feel like I have told this story 100 times already to many different people in many different uniforms. They all asked me where I thought Jeremy might have headed, but at this point, I couldn't give any idea. I had no clue where is now. I think where he is now is what it's supposed to say. All I can hope is that wherever he is, he's being a good boy. Okay, and that's the end of that one. How are we doing, everyone? Are you wanting me to read more? Is anybody still awake? We're at midnight right now, at least where I'm at. But I can keep reading if you want me to. I don't sleep until forever. Rev DK, that one was better than the others. Okay, Fiend is wide awake. You're good for more? Okay. Alright, well the next one up here. Oh, we're just vibing. Oh, thank you, Mr. Blakesworth. Caterpillar Connie, I'm drawing while listening. Good. I'm glad you're drawing. You need to stream and draw sometime. We should do that together. Alright. The next story is called Search. The search parties scoured the woods for weeks. I can distinctly remember the way the police chief spoke to us when he told us they were going to cease the search, but that they wouldn't be giving up the fight to find Abby. That if she is still out there, they would find her. Somehow, some way, they would find my little girl. I even remember the way he hugged me and hugged my wife, and I could tell that he had rehearsed every line of the bullshit he was feeding us in the mirror the night before. I was grateful, though, for the trembling in his voice. That meant he cared. He was just doing his job. They couldn't continue to exhaust the resources anymore, and the volunteers were getting fewer and fewer by the day. It wasn't that he wanted to stop looking, but that at this point, there wasn't a lot of hope that they were going to find Abby. At least, not find her alive. Oh, parents' worst nightmare. The morning that Abby went missing wasn't the worst of days. That is a strange sentence. But it is the worst of days. I think the worst day was day 2. You see, on day 1 you're scared, but you're hopeful. On day 1, you think that whatever happened will have a resolution and that they will find your daughter and arrest whoever took her away. It isn't a common thing. Wait, hold on. Okay, whoever took her, or that she would simply come back home. 9-year-old kids can run away. It isn't a common thing, especially not around these parts, but it can happen. She had her rebellious streaks from time to time, so it wasn't completely improbable that she took off for one reason or another. Looking back at it all now, I realize that was stupid. Like I said, on day 1, you're hopeful. On day 2, realism sets in. I'm sorry to anyone who's a parent and listening to this story. This is already probably terrible for you. By day 2, the hopefulness is gone. You realize how long 24 hours can actually be, and your brain begins to think of all the things that could have happened to your sweet, innocent daughter over the course of 24 hours. There are a lot of terrifying things that can happen in that amount of time. I recall there even being a part of me that wished if someone had taken her, that she was dead at this point. I didn't like the thought of my baby suffering at the hands of some monster. Who could ever hurt a child? The bastard. The police were very kind, especially in the beginning. They would check in on my wife and I and would make sure that we were informed if anything was found. They reported back with us daily, and I couldn't be more thankful for that. However, their searches always came up empty, with the exception of one time. There was a point about a week into the searches where someone had stated they had found a young girl's sleeping gown out in the woods toward the edge of town. I was heartbroken when I heard the news. But that hopeful glimmer raised its shiny head for a second. Even though it wasn't that somebody had found my daughter, there was one step closer to an answer. We were one step closer to the answer. To closure of some sort. But the gown wasn't hers. Oh no, that means someone else is missing. We looked at it immediately after the call came in. We had never seen anything like it before on our Abby. It was a false lead. There were plenty of tips coming into the department, but other than the gown, none of them were anything more than hearsay or speculation. People would call in and say they thought they saw somebody who looked like Abby at a hardware store 45 miles away. but it would always amount to nothing. It is kind of like when you go fishing as a kid. Every single time your line moves, even slightly, you get excited and think that you're on the path to catching that big fish. But it turns out to just be the drag from the bottom of the lake. Eventually you realize that it's just mud and dirt and scum, and eventually you realize it's worthless. Just like those calls, those dozens of calls that meant nothing. While the police were relatively kind, the townsfolk, though hiding it well at first, had opinions of their own. I understand where they were coming from, but it still hurt nonetheless to be suspected. You always hear about the crazy parents who kidnap their own children, or things of sort. But you never really think about what it would be like to be a parent of those missing children. I have since learned to forgive folks in town around here who believe that I or my wife had a hand in my daughter's disappearance. They weren't being cruel. They were just believing what they had always heard in the media or on the news about other stories. Not to mention, it was much easier to have a face on the monster that took the small child from her bed at night than to think that the person is still out there. They want to know, in their own minds, that their child is safe. So thinking of me or my wife as the culprit helps them sleep at night. As long as they stay away from us, from our family, then this devilish beast they have made me out to be won't come snatch up their babies in the middle of the night. That almost sounds like a threat. And yet they still continued to aid in the searches. I assume it was more for Abby than it was for either of us. I like to think that now the searches are ending and everyone is getting on with their lives, that they can start to see us more as normal parts of the community. Even though I know the stigma will hang over our heads for the rest of our lives. At least, as long as we live in this town. Sounds a little bit selfish, but okay. I need to refill my glass. Give me just a second. Hold on, bottle cannot be on camera. Not that it's alcoholic or anything. Keep bottle off camera. Okay. Keep it in. Back to where I was. This was weeks ago. The murmurs have begun to die down. Oh, they finally used the word murmurs. Yeah, murmurs in the dark. Though still very present and clearly not whispered with any shame. The stares continued as I would walk through the grocery store, but at least it felt like it was only every few people instead of every single person, and I could no longer feel the shift of tension float along with me in the people I surrounded as I walked down each aisle. Life was starting to peek out a tiny morsel of normalcy, and even though I knew I had nothing to worry about and nothing to be guilty of, the weight and burden of the event lifted ever so slightly from my shoulders. My wife felt the same. In fact, she seemed to be stronger during these hard times than I did. I will admit, even as a man, Becca is rating with a party of 7. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. All right, I'm sorry, I just lost my place. Okay. I will admit, even as a man, that I relied on her courage throughout this ordeal. I wouldn't have been able to handle all of this if it wasn't for her efforts and her hopefulness. Even though we all knew the inevitable. Oh, let me see what everybody's saying. Oh, Pensa Plague, I like that name. Chaos to my channel. I love chaos. Yes, bring the chaos. Welcome, everybody. Abby was gone. Abby wasn't coming back. We will never see Abby again. I would say to myself, holding back tears, Abby is in a better place now. I was wrong. It was 4:15 in the morning or so when the phone rang. I was sleeping, as was my wife. The shrill sound of her cell phone came piercing through the dark room. Her phone faced down, only emitting the tiniest bit of light that seeped out from between the wooden nightstand and the metal hunk of technology. Coraline, who's calling you this early? Oh, no, it's Caroline. Sorry, I was just watching Coraline and, I'm Caroline. I wish it was Coraline. I asked my wife, wiping my eyes and trying to get a grasp on the foggy world through my tired eyes. Is everything okay? Caroline leaned over and picked up the phone. The shine from it revealed a puzzled look on my wife's face. Her head cocked to the side like a puppy, waiting for its next direction. Oh yes, hello everybody. Are you going to answer it? I asked. No, Caroline said back sharply, shaking her head a bit, still trying to piece it all together herself. I'm sorry, Mark. Go back to bed. I'm looking a bit blown out on here. Let me see if I can turn down my light. It's a little better. I'm really pale, so it's hard to... Okay, is that a little better? Why did my light change? Now it's hard to read. Sorry, I'm going to have to be a little blown out so I can read. And with that, I heard her phone vibrate as she turned off the ringer and set the phone back down on the bedside table. She laid down, and in seconds was back to sleep. So jealous. Softly snoring. Just as I was drifting off into unconsciousness again, I heard the phone once more, buzzing wildly against the cheap IKEA furniture. It's very specific, but okay. Caroline, come on, I muttered, gripping that pillow over my ears now, waiting to feel my wife's body tussle out from the covers to grab the phone. She moved quickly and silenced the vibrations. Yeah. Mark, look. She held the phone up close to my pillow for me to inspect. I rubbed my open hands across my face and let out a sign that I would let out a sign as I squinted to read. I think maybe a sigh. I think that was meant to be a sigh. As I squinted to read the screen. Unknown caller. Yeah, there's a lot of those. I actually set up an app to block a lot of those callers because they kept waking me up. Just answer it. It's probably some shithead kid or something. Maybe one of those nasty old crones finally got our number and want to harass us about, you know. Or maybe someone in a different time zone or something trying to sell shit. I don't know. Just pick it up. A phone call isn't going to hurt, but whoever it is, let them know it's 4 a.m. and they need to stop fucking calling here. I felt Caroline shift once more as she held the phone to her ear. Hello? She asked quietly. She paused. Hello? Another pause. Then I heard my wife scream. I sat up just in time to watch her hurl her phone across the room, and she began to sob into her folded arms that lay across her knees. Caroline, what the hell? I asked. What happened? Who was that? All she could do was cry. I stood up out of bed and shuffled over to where her phone had landed. The call was still going. I could see the timer ticking up, second by second, on the screen. I picked up the phone and held it to my ear. Mark, don't! Caroline yelled at me. I didn't listen. Who the fuck do you think? I darted into the phone, but was abruptly cut off. Daddy? Daddy, is that you? Listen here, if you think this is some kind of game, I swear to God, I will... I started yelling into the phone, before being abruptly cut off. Daddy, why are you screaming at me? I knew this had to be a joke. Somebody from town must think this some sort of sick game, and I couldn't imagine them sitting in a room with all their little friends trying to hold back their giggles so I wouldn't hear it on my end. Look, we don't think this is funny, I replied, trying to keep my calm and maybe even reach out to the pranksters enough that they might not choose to do this sort of thing again. I know what you're getting. I know that you're getting a laugh from this, but you need to understand that that's a really crushing matter to my family. Crystalline art, yeet. Daddy, please. Daddy, it's freezing here, and I'm scared. The voice on the other end started sobbing, and not some fake comic sobbing of a bratty teenager making a prank call, but a sob that I had heard so much before. The sob I had to hear with every scraped knee, with every lost dolly. It was the sob I had heard when our family dog died, and the sob I had heard when dessert couldn't come before dinner. That was my little girl. That was my Abby. You'd think he would have recognized her speaking voice. But, okay, it's the cry you recognize. Where are you, sweetie? I said sternly into the phone, now giving up the idea that this was a prank. I had accepted that even if there was only a slim chance that my Abby was on the other end of the phone, I wanted to find out as much as I could. Sweetheart, I need you to tell me where you are. I can come get you. I will come get you. Look around you. What do you see, sweetie? Tell me. Crystalline, our daddy, please. Yes. It's dark, Daddy, the voice replied. Mark, you're scaring me, Caroline said. Hang up the phone. Tell them that this isn't funny and that they need to leave us alone. That's a little suspicious for a mother to say. That sounds guilty, doesn't it? I could hear the tremble in my wife's voice. It shook, just like mine, and her eyes were filling up with tears. Sweetheart, please. Abigail, please tell me something. Tell me anything. We are coming from you, I promise. We are coming for you, I promise. We are going to find you no matter what. Do you see anything at all? Anything that could tell us where you are? Please, Abby. Please look as hard as you can. Crystalline art, sus as fuck. Yeah. Yes. Yes, it is. Absolutely sus. You'd think the mother would be on the phone trying to get information from the daughter as well. Mark, my wife repeated, the tremble in her voice even more pronounced than before. Mark, this has got to be some stupid kids playing some stupid game. Please hang up the phone. This is too much. Daddy, it's dark, the voice said again. Daddy, it's dark. I know, sweetie, but Daddy, it's dark. The girl's voice repeated. Daddy, it's dark. Daddy, it's dark. Abigail, I asked into the receiver. I hear you, honey, just, Daddy, it's dark. Daddy, it's dark. Daddy, it's dark. Daddy, it's dark. The voice echoed itself over and over. I stood there, my knees rattling, staring at my now sobbing wife. The sound that was coming through the phone grew deeper as it relayed its message over and over. Gradually, almost like a record player, slowing down, and the voice deepened. But it kept its phrase. Daddy, it's dark. Daddy, it's dark. Leaping out of bed, Caroline grabbed the phone from my hand and threw it to the ground. The sound of the plastic and the glass breaking on the floor pulled me out of the trance this prankster had just put me in. The rock in my stomach stayed sunken in my gut as I looked to my wife, wanting to cry, but simply not able to project tears or sound. I shook. I just shook. I think your wife has something to tell you, buddy. We didn't clean up the pieces of the phone. For a few moments after the call, we just existed. The overwhelming nature of the situation flooding over us, drowning us silently. I was the first to make a sound. That was an awful thing to do. What the hell was that, Mark? Caroline asked. That was sick. That sounded almost, I don't know, demonic? Who does that kind of shit? You know, there's no way that was Abby, right? You know that couldn't have been her. That wasn't our little... I know, I interrupted. I know, but damn, Caroline. Damn, it sounded so much like her. I know what it sounded like, my wife said, coming to the side of the bed where I stood. I know. It seemed like it could have been her. But it's been months, and her voice is going to live in your head forever. You know that. I'm sure we will both hear her voice for the rest of our lives, in every little laugh, or somewhere on every television show. She is always going to be with us, Mark. But that wasn't our girl. The sound she made, I said. And why was she saying that it was dark? Because it was dark. But I'm sure there's another reason for that. Oh, poor thing. Mark, stop it, my wife replied. Get it out of your head that it was Abigail. It wasn't. You want it to be her so bad, and I get that. But Mark, she's gone. She's been gone for months, and though it hurts to think about, you know what the sheriff said. Mr. Plaguesworth. Why the fuck does the dad have to have my name? Oh, I'm sorry. That she's gone, I said back, whispering through the forming blockage in my throat. That she's likely gone, and that she's likely dead. It's hard, Caroline said, reaching for my hand. There isn't anything that we can do at this point. There isn't anything we can... Her reassurance was interrupted abruptly by a stiff knocking at the front door. There's something on the book. I looked over to the clock to see that it was still only 4:30 in the morning. Then brought my gaze back to my wife, who was obviously just as confused as I was, staring at me for some kind of answer. It's an interesting typo. It says we, but it's wait. Maybe it was I felt the heat rise, but there's a W there. I felt a heat rise in my body as the rock from my stomach shot up into my chest. Now a fireball, as I allowed myself with rage. Okay. No, I said. This has gone too far. The call was one thing, but I'll be damned if I'm going to let this motherfucker come to my home. Let's see, Crystalline Art spits out drink. Oh ho! I made my way over to the closet, and from the top shelf, pulled down the 12-gauge shotgun I had left there to protect my family. Now, if ever was the right time to claim it from its resting place. It loaded with a loud clack, as my wife said nothing. I could sense she was now sharing my rage, but couldn't find the right move to make. I stormed out of the bedroom and made my way towards the front of the house. I held my breath as I stood in the foyer, or foyer, however you say it, shotgun in hand, waiting for another sound. I could hear my heart racing inside of my own head. But it left me unbothered. I had a goal, and I was ready to teach these punks a lesson. I wasn't sure if I was going to actually shoot them or just scare them straight. but I knew that somehow I was going to get my point across. The next bang on the door didn't take long to arrive. I leapt forward, grabbing the handle, and pulled the knob as hard as I could towards me. I shouldered my weapon, finger on the trigger, and took one step to the threshold of the house. Nothing. Look, officer, I'm telling you, we both heard the knocking. We both heard the call. We both heard the voice. This isn't something in our head. Mark, listen. Officer Brown. It's always an Officer Brown. Placing a hand on my shoulder. We all know you and Caroline have been going through a lot. We know that this isn't something people just work their way through or get over. No, it really isn't. It's horrible. And I'll even go as far as to say maybe you did hear something knock against the door. But I don't think someone is messing with you two. I just don't. These houses creak and rattle. The bang could have been the wind, or maybe the house is settling, or something like that. I don't know. But people don't just vanish, I asked. You know that's not what I meant, Mark, Brown replied. You'll be hard-pressed to find me not believing that people can't just vanish, I said, as Brown hung his head, aware of the fact that he struck a chord. Yeah, probably not the best thing to say to a man with a missing child. And to anybody that came in after my drinking before, it's not alcohol, it's just nameless drink. And yes, it's blue. I love it. Rev DK. He's a dick. Yes, he is. That was a bad move. Maybe you two need a vacation. When was the last time you guys got out? Maybe try to leave this town, this house, for a week or two. It might do you some good. A little rest and relaxation certainly never hurt anybody. But unless you got some kind of proof about either of these claims, the call or the knocking, there really isn't much I can do but maybe drive by and check in on the house a bit on shift when I'm doing rounds around town. I'd appreciate that, I said back, feeling more defeated than dismissed. Officer Brown nodded at me, patting the hat on he was resting on his shoulder, down gently twice, then nodded to Caroline before exiting. I shut the door behind him. Slammed the door behind that guy. That was messed up. You don't say that. And he knew. But he was probably one of those people that was blaming the parents. So, and he probably did that intentionally. I don't think so, I said. Oh, wait. Okay, here we go. I skipped a paragraph. They think we're crazy, you know that, right? Caroline asked me. They think we're fucking nuts. I don't think so, I said. I think they don't know what to do. I don't think they believe us, that's for sure. But I don't think they think we're crazy. He pities us, she said. Nobody takes us seriously, Mark. He pities us like children. We worked so hard and tried so hard, and we did everything we could. She was starting to break down again. Okay, it sounds like she's a little more concerned about herself than the daughter. I mean, it is months later, but still. Caroline, it's going to be okay, I tried. Maybe he was right about getting away. Maybe we should get out and try to go somewhere nice for once. He's not wrong. It's been quite some time, and honestly, maybe a change of scenery could do us some good. I'm not going anywhere, Caroline snapped back at me. I'm not leaving until I find out who the hell is pulling this shit. What does it matter? Who cares? If it happens again, we can hopefully trace the call back to the number. I'll call the phone company. I'll get a hold of somebody. They might not even have my number, and we can change yours when we get you a new phone. They won't be able to reach us. Except through the front fucking door, Mark, Caroline said, her voice getting louder. Except when they show up at our house at 4:30 in the morning. What's next? Climbing through the windows? Hiding under our bed? How far are you willing to let this go, Mark? Calm down, I said. Slow down for just a moment. You're talking crazy? She interrupted. Am I? Or am I saying things that are scaring you just as much as they scare me? How do we know that the banging wasn't a distraction? How do we know that there isn't someone in the house now? How can you be so damn sure, Mark? No one is in our house, Caroline. I mean, you two are in the house, but okay. I tried to keep my voice calm, but I was starting to get more and more frustrated as her tone raised against mine. You don't think that maybe we would have hurt them? And none of the windows are open, or broken, or anything of the sort. The house is secure. Do you think they just came through the walls? The only way they could have gotten in would be through the front door, which I opened, and I assure you, there was nobody there. Trust me, I looked. I was ready for anything to be standing there, and there wasn't a soul on our front porch, or by the door or anything, and nothing got past me. I promise you. Mr. Plaguesworth, I'm getting all... Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay. You're a good Mark. Actually, no, it seems like this Mark's kind of okay. His wife's not very nice, though. You think I'm crazy too, don't you? Caroline sat on the living room sofa, dropping her head and placing her hands folded on the back of her skull. You think I'm just as crazy as the cops do. What are you doing, Mark? What is happening here? Nothing is happening. I sat beside her, placing my arm over her shoulder, feeling her shift her weight over onto my body. You're scared. I'm scared. It's okay. If you don't want to go anywhere, we don't have to. We can stay here, and we can keep the doors locked, and we can do whatever you feel would make you more comfortable. I'm here. I won't let anything get you, I promise. Oh, that's sweet. Caroline stayed on the couch for most of the day, looking up to the ceiling, blankly. I offered her something to eat or drink, and she only nibbled at the sandwich I made for her around dinner time. She was disconnected. When the sun had set, I was getting myself ready to go back to bed. I entered the living room to find her still there, gazing up. Caroline, I asked, are you ready for bed? I crossed the living room, behind the couch, and glanced over some of the books on the shelves that sat firmly against the back wall. I turned to the couch and asked again, but in a tone as to not sound intrusive. Caroline, if you're not ready, that's okay. We can stay down here tonight if you feel safer, but I think some rest upstairs might do you some good, don't you think? Caroline mumbled quietly, almost under her breath. I couldn't make out what she was saying. A little typo. So I stepped closer, still behind the couch. I'm sorry, dear. Could you say that again? She mumbled, but still too soft for my ears to pick up. Let's go to bed, Caroline. It'll be... Daddy, it's dark, said Caroline, cutting me off. What? I asked, my heart beating slightly faster. Daddy, it's dark, she repeated. Daddy, it's dark. Daddy, it's dark. Her repetition sped up as she spoke these same words over and over and over. I started calling out her name, but she wasn't listening. She was yelling now at the top of her lungs, loud enough that I could hear the strain on her vocal cords, and could imagine the pain in her throat. from behind the couch. I screamed for her to stop, but she didn't. I pleaded, now terrified. "Daddy, it's dark! Daddy, it's dark! Daddy, it's dark!" She sounded almost amused at this point, but I could still hear her voice giving out. It was deafening. I had never heard Caroline get so loud in the years we had been together. I finally lost it and hollered one last time, "Caroline, fucking stop!" And she did. That same eerie silence that loomed after the knocking the night before had returned. I wanted to speak up, but I couldn't find the words. I couldn't even hear Caroline breathing on the other side of the couch. But I could feel it. I could feel her smiling. I could feel her eyes still staring to the ceiling, all from behind the sofa, out of view. Caroline is tiring my voice. Then there was movement. I heard the shuffling on the cushions, slow but light. I was frozen, my eyes looking towards the back of the couch, waiting to see Caroline sit up for the first time today. In the dim light of the room, I saw a hand come over the top of the couch and grip. It stayed there for a moment, and it took no more than a second for me to realize that it was not Caroline's hand that was reaching to pull the weight up. "Abigail?" I asked, my voice shaking and hushed. The hand shot back down behind the sofa as I ran around to the other side, pulling myself by using the weight of the furniture. There lay Caroline, her eyes still staring, her mouth wide open as if screaming. She was cold. She was gone. As if the townspeople didn't think I was a monster before, I'm sure they do now. I had called the police immediately after I realized that Caroline was dead. They told me that I did the right thing by calling, but I had to go in for extensive questioning. I knew they were going to originally think that it was me that killed her, but thankfully the autopsy proved my innocence. She had died of a heart attack. I never told them about the screaming or my daughter's hand. They would have never believed me anyway. I said that I found her laying there, just as she was. And I never told them about last night. I never told them about how I was in my bed, watching the minutes tick by on the clock. I never told them that a small tap came on my window. I never told them that a young voice could be heard from outside of it, and that this time there was no fear. This time there was calm. I never told them that I followed that voice out into the yard and across the way into the woods that lined the back of my home. I never told them how I made my way through the trees and how I could feel exactly where to stop. I never told them that I dug roughly 5 feet deep into the ground and discovered what I had always feared someone else from the search parties would find. But again, there was only calm and a voice. "It's okay, Daddy," the voice said softly. "It's not dark anymore." "Did she do this to you?" I asked, still looking into the pit. She did. "How could I have not known?" I asked. "Nobody did." "Abigail, I'm so sorry. I wish I could have done something. I wish I would have known. Daddy, it's okay. It's not dark anymore." I let the corner of my lip come up into a tiny smile. Not one of cheer, but more of satisfaction. I looked down and started to push the dirt back in the hole. And that's the end of that one. All right, is anyone still awake in here? So I'm trying to see, what was the name of that story again? That was a long one. Okay, so that one was Search. Yeah, that was actually a pretty decent length. Yep, okay. Are we still good for another story? I'm good to read probably another one. Okay, good. My back is starting to hurt, so I might have to put myself in a corset soon, but I think I can make it through another. We can do this. What's our time at? We're still good. We're still good. All right. The next one is called Magazines, and it's in another section of the book. So I think this is different collections. Oh, thank you. So, like, this section is called Andrew, but this story is called Magazines. There's just blank pages. The devil on your shoulder has a name. Ooh. Yes, a corset for back pain. Yeah. I used steel-boned corsets to kind of just keep my posture right. So that, you know, my back doesn't hurt so much. I have a slight curve. It was actually Rev who helped me discover the actual curve in my back. For the longest time, it just hurt, and I didn't know why. But that's why I started corset training, was to help with my back pain. And tight lacing just kind of started happening, you know. It was already on, might as well. Alright, so magazines. I had a hard time falling back to sleep after the first time my sister tried to smother me. Oh, well, okay. First sentence, and we've got murder. Mr. Plaguesworth, interesting. Yeah, it's better than wearing that big plastic thing that they put on people. Rev DK, wow, yeah. Yeah, first sentence, we've got attempt of murder. I remember it as thinking that maybe she was just playing a game or something. That is no game. But once I realized that I wasn't going to be able to get any more air into my lungs, the game was over, and this was an attempt at murder. Why, yes. Going strong. Aw. Yes, Fiend, you absolutely know it. She pushed her pillow so hard against my face that it made my cheekbones swell for the week after the attack. Oh my. My eyes were black from her elbow shoving the pillow down onto my face while she pinned down my arms with her legs, all of her weight sitting on my pinched throat. Oh. I remember my chest feeling like it was burning and blood rushing to my face before passing out. Thank God my sister's too damn dumb to know the difference between passed out and dead. Something skittering. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there's something skittering. Bad timing, right? I told my parents every time it happened. Oh, it was more than once? Which is something like 4. There's that number 4 again. Maybe 5 times now. Every time I do, they give me a puzzled look and tell me I must be dreaming. When I see my sister at the breakfast table, she pretends as if nothing happened. And even though my neck, cheeks, and eyes are swollen, it seems that everyone in my household believes that it was nothing more than a dream. My sister would never do such a thing. I must have fallen out of my bed, which I admit has happened in the past, but never to the extremes of my injuries, and not since I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. I woke up for those. I know what what it is. Okay, what it is like to fall. This was not a fall. This was my sister, 11 years old, 2 years younger than me, trying to snuff out the light from my eyes. I simply refused to give up the ghost. Goodness. Connie, I am so glad we did not have a relationship like that. I'm glad we actually liked each other. It was just before my 14th birthday that I ran away. It was frightening at first, but after a week or so, I grew used to it. I tried my best to stay outside of town, any town, and would walk for miles every day. Much of it along the railroad tracks and through wooded pathways until I ended up someone else, but I think it's supposed to be somewhere else. Eventually, every location I ended up started to be new to me and unfamiliar. After about 3 weeks of being on the run, I began to understand that my family was not going to look for me. I pieced everything together in my head and realized that my parents knew what my sister was doing. Oh, they had to have. They were just letting nature take its course, as terrible as that sounds. 14 again, yes. Yeah, it's a lot of the same numbers coming up. I'm wondering if there's like a hidden theme or reference in there. Because this is all written by the same guy. I say this now with such ease because the world is much more clear to me. I say this now because I have learned. The games my parents would play that involved me staying in the locked cupboard weren't games at all. Oh my. I wasn't amazing at hide and seek. No, I was kept out of the public eye. I wasn't allowed out or to make any noise when the family came over. In fact, I recall not being able to ever meet my family when they came over. Grandparents, uncles, aunts, and the like. I never got any Christmas gifts from them, or from my parents, or from anyone, honestly. I was allowed to exist. This would explain why my father would call my mother a whore and refer to me as her kid. To that respect, I guess it is a stretch to call my father then, isn't it? We can refer to him as Jacob from here. That was his name, so it would only be fitting. Anyway, Jacob and my mother did not provide for me like they did for my sister, and did not give me the same privilege in any matter. Oh, that's awful. My sister's attempts to kill me, they forgot the S there, were only the final straw in the decision to leave. And they didn't want to find me, so now, finally, I could start over and become my own man. At 14? Though my past was a bit more traumatizing, and though I may have more struggles spending my adolescent years out on the streets and in the woods, making tents from stolen blankets from Walmart and eating what was thrown out in the dumpster of the shopping centers. The best time to start looking, by the way, is around 9 in the evening. Let's see. If they see you, sometimes they will bring you out food or at least give you the leftovers before it makes its way into the dumpster. I was still pretty typical in the following of pop culture. I would steal one of those celebrity magazines and look at pictures of all the actors and actresses on the cover. And I would read all about how awesome their lives were. If I could be anything, especially when I was at that age, only 16 years old or so, I would have been one of those movie stars in the magazines. Okay, we're at 16 now, not 14. So, I guess this is more time passed. I could wear the tuxedos to all of the big events and drink expensive alcohol and pretend to give a shit about the environment, just like they do. I could have done whatever I wanted because I would have had all the dough, and the guy with the dough calls the shots. Yeah, that is so unfortunately true. Even just to get my face on the cover of one of those magazines would set off my career, and I would be the head guy in charge of everything. That's just how the world works, whether you like it or not. It's not until you're on the cover of some magazine that people start paying attention to what you have to say. Not necessarily. I've been in a few magazines. Can't remember if I've been on a cover, but I've been in a few magazines, and it didn't change anything about my life at all. I got a few fan letters. That's about it. I mean, it was fun. I would do it again, but it didn't change anything. Shaking my stuff. So I was traveling east, I believe, somewhere around the Appalachian Mountains, when things started going south. I ended up walking through the city limits and hopped into the back of this 18-wheeler that rattled down the highway and stunk to high heavens. Gross. When the truck stopped, I hid behind one of the boxes. But it wasn't long before the driver of the truck found me. Before I knew it, I was in handcuffs and being brought to the police station in a city called Hagerstown. Oh, there's actually one of those somewhat close to this area. It didn't take long for them to find out who I was, where I came from, and being that I was only 16, started making arrangements for me to get back to my parents. I refused to go, but they informed me that they were on their way, and they would be able to pick me up in the morning, being as how they were only a state away. They put me in my cell and told me to get some sleep. And they put them in a cell? Just like the nights where my sister tried to put me out of my misery, I had a hard time keeping my eyes shut. For the first time in 2 years, I couldn't fall asleep. I don't blame you, kid, you poor thing. It's awful. All of these poor kids all have horrible lives. In the morning, my attention was quickly fixed on the noises I could hear down the hall. I placed my head close to the bars to hear Jacob's voice, hollering about where his kid was and wanting to know what he had done wrong to end up getting thrown in the slammer. The door to the hallway opened, and in walked Jacob and my mother, both their eyes set with fury. The officer released me to them, and we all sat in the car, silently, for about 45 minutes. There's another 4. Before Jacob decided to speak up. "What the hell did you think you were going to do?" he asked me, never separating his teeth. Ugh. "Where the hell did you think you were going to go?" "I was gone for years, and the two of you never even bothered to find me. I've been all over the place, and I don't need to answer any more of your questions." "You'll do as I say, boy." "I'm not going to play these stupid games with you. Your mother and I have been having enough stress at the house without you being there, and we certainly won't put up with your lip. Do I make myself clear?" "Good to know my sister's okay," I said sarcastically. "Glad to see you still haven't given up on her yet." "She's a good kid, Samuel," Jacob said to me, not taking his eyes off the road. "You wouldn't know anything about that, so drop it." "She was a bitch," I replied sharply. "Just like the both of you." The car pulled over to the side of the road and came to a stop. Without a word, I saw Jacob turn around, and with one long swing, bring down a black club of some type across the top of my head. I was out before the pain had time to set in. Yep, that's horrible abuse. You know, with a kid missing for multiple years, I don't think they would have just released him to the parents. God, awful. I woke up to what sounded like sirens going off inside my skull. I could hear it all resonating, bouncing around in my brain, making the process of waking up almost unbearable. I grabbed my temples and rolled over onto my knees, pressing my forehead against the cold, wet soil. Oh, he's outside. Lifting my head, I took a look around to see a blur of brown and green. My vision was slowly coming back, and even though it hurt like hell, I stood to my feet, only to slide back down onto my bottom. I placed my hands over my bent knees and waited for the world to come into focus. Trees. Lots and lots of trees. And dirt. That's all I could see. There was a downed log over in the distance, but beyond that, everything seemed pretty uniform. Just leaves and barks, and bark for as far as I could see. I ran my hand over the top of my skull, to see what the damage was. Huge knot sat right on top of my head, making me feel as though I probably looked like one of those cone-headed alien folk from the movies. Okay. It hurt to touch, but when I pulled my hand in front of my face, there was no blood, which I was very thankful for. The blow was hard enough to knock me out, but not enough to split me open. Oh, that's messed up. I sighed, a belated breath of relief, and chuckled for a second. That bastard Jacob must have thought I'd be dead by now. Joke's on him, asshole. I'm not dead yet. Wow. They dumped him? Oh man, these people are terrible. What's with all these terrible people? Once my vision cleared and the headache began to go from a sharp edge of pain to a dull roar, I stood and decided it was time to begin searching. For what? I don't know. But I needed to find something, anything, that could help me get back to civilization. I figured I couldn't be too far from a road or path that Jacob couldn't drive on, or could have driven on. He was a strong guy, but not really strong enough to drag my limp body for more than half a mile, I would assume. That's still pretty strong. But then, I don't want to underestimate him and his determination. I know if I was hiding a presumably dead body, I could probably get it out into the woods quite a distance. Regardless, I needed to get back to something that would guide me home, wherever home is going to be from here on out. Man, this guy's life is so sad. I carefully place each step in front of me, making sure not to stumble, holding on to the trees that I passed as I made my way over the fallen log. If anything, it would be nice to be able to sit on something besides the dirt, to think about my next move. I reached the wooden corpse, only to realize that much of it had begun to rot. I pushed my hand down onto a spot that looked soft, only to be proven right as my palm cracked the bark and landed inside the log. Even at 2 or 2.5 feet in diameter, this thing was surprisingly soft. I walked along beside the log until I found a section of it, down by the base towards the roots, that were mingling themselves into the air, which was tough enough for me to sit. Though it was not initially comfortable, I was able to wiggle around enough on the tree to find just the right nook to make this wood somewhat worth my walk over. I put my weight on my hands, leaning back a bit, and let out another deep sigh. "You seem tired," a voice said from below the log, causing me to jump to my feet. "Who the hell said that?" I hollered, throwing up my fists, causing myself to topple a bit before catching my balance. "I swear I'll fuck you up. Where are you?" "Calm down, please," the small, humble voice said. It was only then that I realized the voice couldn't belong to anyone older than a child. It was too meek, too tiny for anyone who was actually grown. I put my fists at my side and called out to it. "Are you okay, kid? Where are you? Are you hurt?" I said. "I'm not hurt," it replied. "I'm just lost and scared. Are you hurt?" I laughed at this, stepping closer towards the noise, which seemed to almost come from the log itself. "Actually, I am. Just a bit, though. I'll be all right. What are you doing out here? Do you happen to know how to get back home?" "This is my home," the young voice said. "Right here." "How can this be your home? There's no house, little guy. Are you playing a game?" "No," it said back. "Would you like to play one? Do you know where I can find a road or a house or maybe even a phone?" "Who would you call, Samuel?" the boy asked. I stopped and took a step back, my fist clutching once again at my side, growing ready to fight. "What did you say?" I asked. "I asked who you would call." "You know my name. How?" "Because the man who left you out here was screaming it while he dragged you out here. He said you were a bad boy and some type of stupid little fuck. He also said that he would see you in hell." Man. Terrible people. There's more skittering. I think there might be a mouse down here. To hear this small of a voice use such harsh words made my stomach hurt. I don't know quite why I was this sensitive to hearing something like this. These words were not new to me by any stretch of the means, but to hear them come out of a child left a bad taste in my mouth, which combined with the rather eerie thought that this child had watched Jacob pull me out here and leave me to die. "How long have I been laying here?" Or there. "When did that man leave? Which way did he go?" I asked the boy, who still hadn't revealed himself. "He left a long time ago. He was really mad and pretty scary. Not too scary, though. But I don't scare very easily. You were lying there for a really long time, though, and he went that way." A small pale hand came over the log and pointed in a direction opposite of which I had started walking. The tiny white hand shook slightly and didn't remain pointing for long before retracting back behind the log. "Are you going to leave?" it asked me. I crossed over towards the log, making sure that my footsteps didn't make too loud of a noise, even though this kid was completely aware of my presence. It gave me the feeling like when I was very young and would chase squirrels in the backyard. I would tiptoe towards them silently, and even though I never caught them, I truly believed that if I was quiet enough, I could be successful. "Do you want me to stay?" I questioned in response. "Would you want to come with me?" "I can't," it said back. "I can't leave." "What do you mean?" I replied. "You can come with me, at least until I get back to a town or a road. Why don't you come along?" I said I can't. "Well, why not?" There was a pause that gave the air a cold, looming sense. I felt like the breath that wanted to make its way into my lungs was hanging in front of my face instead of pushing itself down my throat. "I'll show you if you come here," the boy said softly. Do not, no." Nope, that's always a bad option. I stopped being silent, but still kept my cautious stance as I crept towards the tree. Inch by inch, through the thick, thick silence, I moved closer and closer until I was standing with my knees pushed against the bark. The boy said nothing as I leaned over, peering beyond the horizon of the log. What I saw shocked me to the core. The boy, lying on his side, was not only pale, matching the complexion of the hand that he had offered up just minutes prior, but seemed sickly, diseased. You could see his bones through his joints, and it seemed, this sounds like the monster from one of the other stories, and it seemed as though he had been there for weeks. His clothing was tattered and torn, barely hanging from his emaciated body. On his ankle was clasped a shackle, almost like what you would see in old movies. It was about 2 inches thick, rusted, and covered by the raw, rubbed and chafed skin above the boy's foot. It was obvious that he was pulled against the chain and had failed at freeing himself many times. The chain ran from the shackle up to the tree and seemed to be rooted into the tree itself. The boy looked at me, fear and concern pouring from the brightest blue eyes I had ever seen. I immediately jumped to the log and grabbed the chain to help the child, but it wouldn't budge. My head was throbbing as I yanked the chain, pushing my foot against the log, trying to force the wood to crack. "It's not going to work," the boy said. "I've tried that. It has to be my foot." "What?" I asked him frantically, still pulling at the chain. "Who did this? What's going on? How long have you been here?" "It has to be my foot. The chain won't break, I promise." "I'll go get help. Which way was the road?" "The road is miles long, and I don't have that kind of time." He said all of these things with such calm and such patience, like he had accepted death already and was willing to go into the light. It was almost like he wanted to go, like it wasn't a big deal. "What do you mean it has to be the foot? Like, you have to slide it through the loop?" I asked. "You have to take off my foot, or break it. I can't do it. I'm not strong enough, and I'm scared." "Break it and slide it through." "I can't do that. No, hold on, I'll get you loose." "Break it," he said back, still collected and calm. Just one quick snap. Tears ran down my face as I pulled the chain with every ounce of strength I had, giving forth no results. I pulled until my shoulders hurt and my knees cramped over. "Please, God, no," I said to the child, who still stared at me with oceans behind his eyes. "Please, no. You have to break it. Please do it." "I can't." "Please." The boy shut his large blue eyes and put his face to the earth. His hand dropped to his side as consciousness slipped away from him. I had very little time to help this child, if I wanted him to make it. I don't know what caused me to be so compelled to make sure he was okay, but I felt the need to get him out of there, to get him to safety. I counted to 3 in my head, and with a trembling hand, I grabbed his foot and pushed the toes down to where they would straighten out with the leg itself. There was a quick pause as the tendons tightened, but I kept pushing until a final loud snap was heard. The boy stayed asleep as I slipped his mangled foot through the shackle before stepping aside to vomit in the leaves beside us both. Ow, that sounds terrible. When I came up for air, I was horrified to see the boy, standing above me, his ankle no longer broken, his clothes no longer tattered, his size back to what could be expected of a child his age, and a smile creeping across his face. "You did it," he said to me, as I scooted on my ass away from him. "Congratulations. I'm very proud of you. You did well." "What the fuck is this?" I shouted, shaking furiously, yes. "Is this some type of trick? It can't be. I swear, I know I just broke your ankle. I heard it. I felt it. I know you did, and I'm glad you were able to muster up such courage. What a brave young man you are. You've done so well. I think you're going to be great." "Stay away from me. Go away, you demon." I kept sliding myself away, but every time I would pull my body across the mud, the boy, devil thing, with the blue eyes would follow me at my pace. He towered over me until I finally hit my back on a stump amongst the leaves. I covered my face and waited for pain, but none came. I let my hands go to rest after a moment to realize that the boy was sitting in front of me, cross-legged and smiling. But not the sinister smile that he had from before, a kind, sweet smile. He smiled like he actually cared about me and wanted me to be happy, even in my terror. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I want you to be the star you always wanted to be," he said. "What?" "I know what it's like to lose a dream," he told me. "I know how hard it is to do things you want in life, and how unobtainable the stars can really be when your feet are planted here on Earth." "Are you going to hurt me?" I asked him. "No," the boy chuckled briefly. "Quite the opposite. I'm going to help you, Samuel. I'm going to help you get your face in the magazines, just like you always wanted. Isn't that what you always wanted?" I looked to the ground, wondering how much of this situation was real, and how much of it must have been caused by the crack to my head I had taken from Jacob's club back in the car. This had to be some kind of messed up, deceiving brain trick or dream or something, I thought. It couldn't be real. The boy sat there, waiting for me to answer, grinning. "How are you going to help me?" I said to him, more curious about playing along with the story now than figuring out what in the world was going on. What was real and what wasn't. "I'm going to make sure that you get on the magazine covers you always wanted to be on. I'm going to help you become the celebrity you always idolized. I owe you that much, wouldn't you think?" "Why do you owe me?" "You saved me," he answered. "I would have died if not for you. I would have never gotten free if you didn't come along and help me. I owe you this. I owe you your dream. So I'm going to help make you famous." His head tilted over towards his shoulder, and again he chuckled. "What do you think?" "What do I have to do?" I asked him. "How do you plan to?" "Just trust me," he said, cutting me off, "and do exactly what I tell you." I listened to the boy. I heard every word he said, and I can remember agreeing with all of it. He told me all about how it wasn't my fault, that I wasn't amounting to anything. No, he reminded me that I was doomed from the beginning. My family was awful, my upbringing was terrible, and this boy, Andrew, I remember him saying his name was, made sure that I knew that it wasn't my fault, none of it, and that the only way for me to get notoriety was that I wanted was to first get rid of the family that held me back for all these years. Ooh, I think I know where this is going. He was right. I got the notoriety after I burned down my childhood house. I got the fame and my face on the cover of the magazines, just like I always wanted, after I took that club to Jacob's head just before lighting the match. I locked all the doors and barred them with furniture. My name will always be remembered, just like Andrew told me it would. And tomorrow, I get to be the biggest star of them all. They all get to watch me sit in that chair, looking at them all through the glass. They get to watch the poison take to my veins. They get to see my final bow before I am immortalized as a legend. The nation will be watching, and I owe it all to Andrew. Oh, that took quite a turn. Okay, so that's the end of that story. What's our time at, everyone? We are at 3 hours. All right, I think I'm going to call it a night for tonight. I have some other things that I need to work on, and I'll probably try and plan my next stream decently soon. There's still a lot more of this book to read, so I hope you guys join me for that. And again, this book is Murmurs in the Dark by M.J. Orrs, who's a good friend of mine. My only criticism is that an editor would be very helpful. But otherwise, I've been enjoying this read, and I've been enjoying all of the company. Oh, thank you, Crystalline. She said that I did great. Oh, Caterpillar Connie, good night. Yes, good night. Good night. I appreciate all of you for joining me. And Rev, thank you again for moderating. And just everyone, thank you so much. This was a lovely first stream. I enjoyed it. All right. Thank you and take care.